License and registration, please. You know why I pulled you over? That's right, you were texting. Sit tight, I'll be right back. Zombies.
When you drive and use your phone, you pay over a third less attention to the road.
If I had anything to say to anybody, just look at everything as if it's burning. I view things even more critically as what is a fire ladder near the house, what plants are most flammable by virtue of their oils. If something's on fire, what are those flames going to be doing? We were sort of up to speed with what to take, what not to take, how to think about it. It meant a lot to me to be able to offer whatever I had, you know, because I had something still materially, but maybe some more energy that didn't get sapped by the trauma, you know, of all that loss, because I was going to be there too.
Good morning, my name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, March 6th to order. Today we have 3 items on our agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances, so we'll hear them in the order that they appear on the agenda. I will be the staff hearing officer for the first 2 projects, but the last project, which is 531 East Coda Street, Betty Weiss will be the staff hearing officer for that project. Under announcements and appeals, I want to announce that the appeal of the show's partial denial of a project located at 1210 Olive Street will be heard by the Planning Commission next Thursday, the 14th, and I believe it's the first item on the agenda if anybody's interested to go see it. I don't have any other announcements or appeals. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? Seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 215 East Mission Street. Good morning.
Thank you. This is a project, as you said, at 215 East Mission Street. The project site is located between Santa Barbara and Garden Streets, and the lot is currently developed with an existing 2-story residence that is just over 4,000 square feet, as well as a swimming pool and detached pool house, which is 215 square feet. There's an existing 2-car garage that is 346 square feet, and then an as-built storage building at the rear of the garage, which is 412 square feet. The purpose of today's hearing is to discuss the legalization of this as-built storage building. It is located within the required interior setbacks, and this is an E1 zone, so the required setbacks are 10 feet from the interior property lines. The setbacks are shown in blue, and then the portion of this structure that is encroaching into the setback is highlighted in yellow. The project also requires a modification to our maximum accessory building size of 500 square feet. Staff does not support this particular modification request, and that is because it is essentially new floor area in the required setback. Staff typically doesn't support new floor area in setback areas when there is a conforming location for a similar type of structure. This is an as-built structure, however, staff reviews it as if it were brand new to the site and new square footage. Staff is not opposed to the modification request for the accessory square footage in excess of 500 square feet. However, we believe that it should be in a code-conforming location. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I was wondering, I did have one question related at this point to it. I went out to the site, and I don't know if you know the answer either. So actually, maybe I'll wait until you do your presentation, because you might.
Well, that one was here too, so it's helpful to.
Well, my question relates to, I went out to the site and I looked at it, and it is clearly a storage structure. It was, obviously tacked on. My question was whether it could receive a building permit as is?
I've checked with the building department on that, and there are some
Cindy,
improvements.
for the
Oh, I'm sorry. Cindy Souter, agent for the owners, Jerry and Barbara Rubin, the owners of the property. I did check with the building department on that, and they are going to need to do some improvements to let it remain, basically installing a firewall here on the two property line sides, because it is closer than 3 feet to the property line, and then there may need to be some roofing improvements made as well. But the owners are totally willing to do that, and they're aware that they might have to make that investment.
And what type of roofing improvements?
I'm not sure. We'll find out when we submit for the building department, but right now it's just a fiberglass wave roof.
Right.
So we may need to put something else in, and then there's the back of it's open, so we may need to close that and add a different sort of ventilation back there.
The back of the roof area or the building?
The back of the building. I'll show you.
Yeah, pictures on it.
This one, yeah. This little
little,
where's the pointer?
oh, okay, yes, the little venting.
This
yes.
little triangle right here is actually open with a mesh wire type ventilation, and that will probably have to be enclosed with a more formal vent put there.
Okay, great. Well, if you want to do your presentation.
All right. Again, my name's Cindy Souter, agent for the owner, Jerry and Barbara Rubin. I brought my own little colored site plan today, too, just to help show the constraints on the property and the existing situation on the property today. We disagree with staff's recommendation for denial of or lack of support for the two setback modifications in this motion for denial. The property is a potentially historic structure, the Driscoll House. And so the area, the house itself and then the area around the house is somewhat sensitive and should be preserved as is. This little walkway here is original brick. And this is a little courtyard. Everything that's green is like landscaping. And then the lighter green is lawn area. So there's not much lawn, but it's mostly landscaping. But this is like a little landscaped courtyard area right here. So not really, and there's lots of trees, including an oak tree. So this isn't really an appropriate space to put it. Plus, again, you're getting close to the house, which is the resource. The backyard is fairly developed. The pool area obviously needs to have the fence around it, so that's an area that needs to remain as is. This little landscaped area in the back is really the only functional yard area that the property has. There's a little picnic table here, and then this is some nice native gardens here with native plants. So the most logical place for the storage building would be in this rear corner where it is not impeding the use of the property, but also allowing the storage to function as a storage unit. The garage is only 346 square feet, so it's very small for a modern day two-car garage, and 2 cars barely fit inside of it. So there is a need for storage, as most garages, you have around the edges to keep things stored. So this allows for them to have additional storage. It is a non-habitable use. It's storage. It's in the setback, so it's not creating a noise-generating activity or anything in the setback. It also provides a view buffer between these two properties. There's an RV parked here that would be visible if the building were not there. And then it also provides a sound screening from the neighbor next door as well. We have letters of support from this neighbor, who's obviously the most impacted because they have the most linear square feet of the structure adjacent to their property line. And then from the neighbor over here as well. And let me check my notes real quick, see if there's anything else I want to add. And the Landmarks Committee did support the location in this far corner because it was away from the resource. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, great, thanks. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 215 East Mission Street? Seeing no one. I did receive one letter from Ms. Paula Westbury expressing concerns regarding the project. and then the two letters you referred to were included in my packet. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site, like I said, and I walked around the site, and generally I agree with staff that the first thing to evaluate when someone's proposing something in the setback is there a conforming location that would work for the project. And in your instance, the most logical area would be in this area, which you pointed out was the existing usable, besides the pool that's usable, but this is in terms of
Functional.
Like functional eating, that kind of stuff. It's in this area. So given the existing development on site, I believe it is appropriate to have it tucked in the corner. Now, how much of an encroachment, I'm not sure. When you say these walls need to be changed to firewalls, what's involved? Are they going to be demolished and rebuilt, or is it?
No. Right now they're single wall construction.
Mm-hmm.
So what they would need to do is on the inside of the structure, add the drywall, the 1 inch thick. I think they needed to have on the inside of the structure to make the double wall construction, which would create the thick the drywall, which acts like the firewall.
Okay. What I'm leaning towards is, given the existing development on the site, given the fact that the two oak trees that are there, the location it preserves the two oak trees, it's tucked in behind the oak trees. It's a low profile, it's 7 feet tall, which is shorter than the fence height limits, which can be 8 feet in the setback. So the building as it is right now, I believe, can be supportable. Mm-hmm. My concern is what kind of changes would be required for building code.
Any changes would retain the existing size and shape of the structure. Everything would be done internally. If the roof were to be replaced, it would be replaced like for like with just whatever is matching, whatever meets code, but it would match how it is there. Maybe instead of the corrugated roof, it might end up being a flat roof, but it would. The size and shape of the structure would not change as a result of the. I'm looking for my email from Curtis, I think. It's the one that sent it to me that specified the exact criteria to make it meet the fire code. Which is in here somewhere. Let's see here. So it can be at 2 feet from the property line for the closest part, as long as it has a 1 hour rated assembly with no openings, which means the drywall. It can have up to a 4-inch overhang, but would also have to be 1 hour protected, meaning put something underneath the overhang. And I don't think we have an overhang, actually. And that's the 2000 code.
Okay. Well, like I said, I can support your request. But the support would only be for this building only, for this use only. And so, and for those reasons that it's a low profile, it's only 7 feet tall, it's storage only, it's not proposed to be used for habitable space or additional usable space, like a guest bedroom or something like that. It's tucked behind the garage, it preserves the existing oak trees, and there's no openings in the setback. So I could approve the requested modifications. I would put a condition that states that this modification approval is valid for this storage building only. And if the use of the storage building is proposed to be changed, or if it is demolished, or if the roof height changed, I originally decided alteration, but it does need to be changed to meet building code. But
I don't think the height's going to change. I think they would just interiorly, or like if they need to redo the roof, they would just take off the corrugated and then put whatever surface needs to be there.
Okay, well, that would be a condition, or if any structural changes are necessary, the approval shall become null and void. And that's not to mean you can't do regular maintenance on it over the life of the building. It's just if this was to be demolished and rebuilt, then it would become void, and you'd have to come in, and if you wanted in the same location, come in and request for a new modification for the new building.
Okay. Can I read that condition just to make sure I got it all?
The first two are the findings.
Right. No, I was just reading the condition. I was just wondering if, just for clarity in the future, if we should add to that condition that, because I know they're going to have to, do the internal changes and possibly change the roof to make it meet code. If you could word in the condition somehow that, as long as the existing size and shape or some way to lock it in so that it can remain as it is now, but it might need building code upgrades to remain in its present.
Well, my concern is what are those upgrades and what they do. If those upgrades require the building to be demolished and rebuilt, or these walls removed, my approval is not valid.
Okay.
I'm open to allowing what is there right now.
Okay.
I feel that's appropriate. If it was taller, if it was, definitely if it's a different use, I don't know what my support would be.
Okay, well, it's definitely going to stay storage. I don't anticipate it getting any taller. And then I know for the firewalls, that can be done internally, so obviously that's not going to impact the exterior of the structure at all. Let me look at the roof real quick again. So for them to close up and redo the vent at the back, is that something that you would think would...
That would be okay.
Okay. So, I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding the scope of your condition of approval.
Well, that would actually make it more... Well, because there's no openings, so that would be definitely... right now there is technically an opening, so there would be no opening.
Right, to meet the fire code. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then if the roof, if it had to be replaced with some other material, but, maintain this appearance, that would be an acceptable change.
I'm concerned with the height. I don't care about the material. In terms of appearance, no, it's more of the low profile that, it's 7 feet. So it's low.
Maybe just add that it can no longer, any modifications could not result in a height taller than 7 feet.
Well, in the findings I put it 7 feet in height, and then in the condition I put, or the roof height changed.
Okay.
I'll actually put the roof height increased, because if for some reason it gets lower, that's okay.
Right.
So just make it clear that the concern is having it raised.
Right.
Okay, so with the revised findings that it is appropriate, given the reasons I outlined, and with that new condition, I approve your project. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Allison would contact you.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Sure. Can we keep this for the file?
Yeah, that would be great.
Allison, when you walk out, can you give this to Kathy? Thanks. The next project is 32 East Islay. If the applicant would like to come up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Anytime you're ready.
My mic upside down. So this is the project at 32 East Islay. The lot is about 6,000 square feet. It's currently developed with a 1,470 square foot one-story residence and a detached 270 square foot garage. The proposed project will demolish the existing one. Am I on mute? The proposed project will demolish the existing one-car garage, which I have highlighted in pink right here, and is proposing a small addition to the front of the existing garage and an attachment to the existing residence on the lower floor. and then a new second story up top. The requested modifications are a modification to allow a conforming addition to a structure that is legally non-conforming to the required 10-foot interior setback. And a second modification is requested to allow that minor addition at the front of the garage within the required 10-foot interior setback. Due to the constraints of the existing development and the size of the lot, there really is not an alternative location to create a conforming garage in an area outside of the setback or the required open yard. So with that, staff supports the requested modification as submitted. I did want to highlight that staff had referred this project to the city's urban historian during the environmental review because the structure is over 50 years of age. And the urban historian determined that the proposal did not have an adverse impact on a potential historic resource because they are preserving the front facade of the building, and the new second story is very low profile and not readily visible from a pedestrian on the sidewalk. You might see it from across the street, but if you were on this side of the street on the sidewalk, you most likely would not read that as a second story. The project as designed is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior's design standards for the treatment of historic properties. And so the environmental analyst has determined that the project was exempt from further environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. The project went to design review at Single Family Design Board on January 28th. And at that time, the board found the requested setback modifications and the second story addition to the legal non-conforming residence were aesthetically appropriate and did not pose any consistency or uniformity issues with the single-family residential design guidelines. At that hearing, there was a little bit of discussion about the existing hedge along the rear property line that is now about 11 feet tall, and staff has suggested that they trim that and maintain it in compliance with the hedge height ordinance, which is 2887-170. With that, I don't know if Paul has anything further to add, but staff recommends approval, making the finding in the report.
Great, thank you. Would you like to state your name for the record?
My name is Paul Zink. I'm the architect, and with me is Art.
Art Denk.
And then
Don Rizzo.
Okay. And I have nothing further to add.
Okay. I actually went out to the site. Thank you for meeting me there, and walked around the property and looked at it. And similar to what I said in the first project, one of the things we look at when people are constructing things within the setback is there a conforming addition or a conforming option that would work for the project site. And I understand, given the existing development, there are constraints of where the addition could be. The existing garage is tucked in the rear, and that's where the proposed garage is going. My question is, can it be pushed forward more, given here's the front entry to the house. There is an entry from the garage into the main living area. Push the building up more to give more space between the properties. I understand it can't be moved over more given the requirements for minimum width and the fact the existing driveway comes down. That limits, your options in terms of shifting it, moving it away from the property owner or property line. But since now it's being demolished, is there another option that can provide additional setback area?
I actually did study that, and one of the most important things for me was really the character of this entrance. This is what I was really focusing on, because when one car is parked here and another car is parked in the apron, to come up into here, and then this is the one that the family and friends can go in, this entry that I was creating, it's a little wider than perhaps it's necessary. The actual dimension, which I have, is 6'5". This front entrance right here at the front door, which is part of the architectural charm, it's 5.5 feet wide, and it creates an alcove, which is kind of like welcome to my house. And I envisioned having a stool here, a bench, a chair, My client works for the Santa Barbara Orchid Estate, so he's always got the muddy shoes and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what this is, my outdoor mudroom, as well as creating the artistic charm. Perhaps there's a way of moving a little bit of the garage forward, but I still believe the door is very important, because if there is no door, when we move this flush with what used to be the old sunroom, then every time you park here or you're coming from this direction, you're forced to open the garage door to get into the house. And that this door is important, and then if you narrow this and you pinch it down so it's only 3 or 4 feet wide, and you have a 3-foot door, it's just basically, it's an alleyway, or it doesn't have what I want to call the elbow room. I always refer to it as a place for a person to stop and pause and wait for a moment and then enter the room. And so I want to have enough room. So that's kind of always the way it was designed. And the other thing is kind of like in those old black and white movies with Gracie Allen and George Burns, the neighbor always comes by and they always come to the back door and they're always talking. And so there's that kind of interaction that I kind of see happening here. So it's important for me. The other issue is, as we move the garage forward, we have to realize the impacts that are happening to this neighbor. Now, this neighbor is used to having this wall here, and we've abandoned this landscaping, and then as we slide this forward, it creates a different zone right here, where right now they have these tables and chairs, and so if we take this mass and we slide it over to give relief to another side, to another neighbor, we're actually impacting what this neighbor is experiencing. And it's important to realize we do propose an 8-foot-high fence along this property lines. And then if our garage right here, if the top of the garage is at 7 foot 11 inches to our top of plate and then the framing above it, the garage is not that much taller than the fence that we are proposing. And so by moving it over 3 more feet or 4 more feet, we're not the benefit to one neighbor at the expense of another neighbor's, the way that they're using their yard. We have to sort of weigh back and forth. My strongest point is the creature features of the romantic aspect of using this house, as well as trying to create the artistic charm. So that's kind of where I've been coming with.
You're filling in this area already. So how is moving it up impacting the neighbor here? It's opening up this back area.
We're filling this up, but we're filling that area up 12 feet, 15 feet beyond. When we slide this wall over, this wall is right at the property line, or a foot from the property line.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay,
Yes.
so
We're taking this element and we're sliding this element over. We will have to trim some of this hedge, and that's just what it is. And this little fence that they happen to have here, which is on the property line, will get altered. It's like 1'8" now, and we're moving it to 3 feet. And the reason for 3 feet is it's the building code rule. If you're less than 3 feet, you have to have a firewall measured from both sides of the framing, by the way, not just the inside of the framing.
Okay.
And this dimension here is I have it a little bit, is 6.5 feet. And then at the front door, it's 5.5 feet. So there is room to move it another 1.5 feet, but not much more than that, because then this becomes kind of just a windowless little alcove it gets boring and cold. And I always envision a little potted plant or a bench or some kind of thing right here to sort of enliven that entry.
in zones V1. Okay. Great, thank you. No, okay. Yeah. Is there anybody here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this on 32 East Islay Street? No? I'd like to note I did receive a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury on this project, also expressing concerns regarding the project. So I'll close the public.
I also did want to note that at the Single Family Design Board level, there were two neighbors that submitted letters. One was Greg Morell. Is that right?
Phil Morell?
Phil Morell. I think I'm combining the two names. Phil Morell and Mike DeLuca.
Yes.
Originally, they were both in opposition to the project. Mike DeLuca has since sent another letter stating that he is now supportive of the project.
And so is Mr. Morell this property owner, and then who is Mr. DeLuca is over here?
Yes.
So it's probably more in regards to your balcony, which isn't in my purview?
Correct. And the deck that was once proposed on that side that has gotten reduced to only 3 feet.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Like I said, I went out to the site and visited it and walked around. And I believe that the modification request for the to allow the reconstructed garage to remain within the east setback, and as well as the extension to allow it to meet code requirements, is an appropriate improvement on the lot. My main concern, as I said, in regards, and as I pointed to in my questions, is this rear proposed setback, given that it appears there is room to move the building up. And you're saying you'd be willing to move it up a couple feet?
A foot to foot and a half. I wouldn't want to make it less than 5.5 feet, which is what they currently have here. And if you went to the front door and you stood there, you would realize this is tight. And so I stood there going, well, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I would not like to make it less than 5.5 feet wide. So and right now I'm 6.5 feet, so it'd be moving the garage forward an additional foot.
And as the property owner, you'd be agreeable to that?
You're on the spot.
Well, in order to get this thing through, probably. But, with the fence and the height of the roof and the way the balcony is, I keep losing more and more space.
Okay, well, I don't feel I could support it as is. And so I could just deny it and it could be appealed to Planning Commission, or I could approve it with the additional foot and a half encroachment. And then you can discuss
Go with a foot.
and discuss it and decide if that's livable, and you still have the option for appeal.
It'll 5.5 feet will be livable. It'll be. He
It's
won't
the
have
same as the door.
It'll be the same as this area. You don't have enough room for a bench.
So I stand up.
All right.
So I take off my shoes standing up.
Okay, so with that change to the project description, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report, and I will add a condition that the garage, would be relocated 1 foot.
A total of 4 feet.
So 4 feet. Well,
Right now I have 3 feet. Shown.
okay, so 4 foot setback from the south property line.
Correct.
Okay. So my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period, and if that was to occur, Suzanne would contact you. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
See it goes off.
Now it's on. The staff hearing officer meeting will reconvene in 2 minutes. Thank you. Staff hearing officer meeting back to order. My name is Betty Weiss, and I'll be the staff hearing officer for this last item on our agenda today. And we will follow a procedure. It's outlined on the The wall over there will begin with staff presentation. An applicant presentation follows. I may have questions for both the staff and the applicant during your presentation phase. And then we will open a public hearing and hear testimony from any members of the public interested. And I'll ask someone to offer up a seat so that the public can come speak at the microphone. Then I'll close the public hearing and deliberate on the matter. I may have additional questions for people and hopefully reaching a decision today. So with all that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Suzanne Riegel for your staff report. All righty. This project is at 531 East Coda Street. The project proposes to convert the existing 8,720 square foot, one-story commercial warehouse to a dance facility. The proposal includes alterations to the building to accommodate that dance facility, including new windows, new roof, HVAC, skylights, removal of security fencing and loading doors, new parking layout with planters, new fencing, roof finishes, and paint, and some interior remodeling. The request before the staff hearing officer today is a modification to allow 13 spaces to be provided for the project instead of the required 35 parking spaces. With that, staff is recommending an approval of the project subject to some operational conditions. Dance Arts is the dance facility that will be going into this building, and they are currently operating at the Vercal building. The proposal is to simply move the operations from the Vercal building to this location, including all the current one-off programs, monthly, quarterly, and classes that they currently offer. The program offers a number of classes to school-age children, including offering alternative or independent PE for local schools, that they actually provide the grade to the schools for that activity. The program, in my understanding, is more of a drop-off program where parents are driving and dropping off their students at the dance facility. There are some older students that do drive themselves, and generally they arrive later in the afternoon and evenings. The applicant did submit a parking and circulation analysis prepared by Scott Schell of ATE, who is here today, and he can further elaborate on his report. There were some drop-off, pickup and drop-off loading requirements that can be adequately accommodated on site in the two parking lots. Staff has provided that as a condition of approval, that continue to be the location for the pickup and drop-off. Staff would like to recognize that the proposed location is near bus lines. It's in a walkable community. It's adjacent to local schools, allowing for not only the students but staff to use alternative modes of transportation. The project was reviewed by the ABR on February 4th, and the board found that the proposed modifications did not have an adverse aesthetic impact, but did request that some bicycle parking be provided, and they have done so on this set of plans. With that, staff recommends approval of the findings and conditions that are outlined in the staff report. I know Brent is here. He may want to elaborate on the operations. Okay. Thank you for the report. I do have questions regarding the proposed conditions of approval. And let's have the applicant address some of those questions in the presentation and back and forth that we'll have. So in your presentation, I have reviewed all the materials. It was a very comprehensive application. I understand the project. I really don't have any questions regarding the regular use of the Dance Arts programs, the day-to-day, and the school participation. I think is wonderful for this new location. Your letter, the applicant's letter, indicates that the school program may increase, which makes logical sense, whereas the traffic study stated that there'd be no change or increase in the program. So that's a little bit of a concern, but not really, because I think throughout the day, the school compatibility is not a question. My main question relates to the conditions recommended and the operation of the conditions 2 and 3. Special events, including recitals, dance productions, and rentals with more than 100 people, e.g. students and parents, shall be held at an off-site location consistent with current operational practices. So I just want to talk a little bit about the number 100, why that number is being recognized as a trigger for requiring off-site. And then the condition number 3, monthly, annually, quarterly, and one-off programs held on-site shall be limited to 36 events per year. I have questions. I don't really understand if these events are also less than 100 people, are more than 100 people, how those two conditions relate, and why 36 per year. I'd like to know how those larger events are managed such that if they're adequately managed, why limit it to 36 per year? Or what is it between you all that came up with these numbers, 100 and 36, and things for these other events? So just so you know, I've read all the materials regarding the general operation. I'm happy to hear more about it. It sounds like a wonderful program, and this is a really great location. But what I would like to talk today more about is these other functions, or these particular functions, and how it relates to these two proposed conditions, because I'm not prepared to apply these conditions. I don't understand them. I need to understand them better. Okay, so with that, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Brent Daniels with LMP Consultants. I'm the agent for Santa Barbara Arts, Dance Arts. I have the owner here with me, Alana, and of course Scott Schell, with respect to some of the discussions on parking demand and whatnot. Ms. Riggle did a great job with her staff report. We've been collaborating on that for a month or two now, and not to say I wrote her staff report. I'm just saying, we had a lot of meetings, and we came up with some of these conditions jointly, and they were agreed to by us, and from that standpoint, we're all comfortable with them. I will explain some of them, but I do want to say that again, we appreciate the report. We agree with the conclusions, and now I can get into your concerns, or your what you've identified. The 100 people, the 100-person limit was something that staff and I came up with Alana's concurrence. She rarely has 100 people, and typically when she does have 100 people, she's in a different venue anyway, not her building, but Marjorie Luke or Granada or the Libero. I mean, it's places that can actually handle 100+ people. Not to say the building, the current building, or the building that she is looking to go into wouldn't be able to hold 100 people. From an occupancy standpoint, I think that capacity is about 150. But we understand we're not really talking about an occupancy cap here. What we're talking about is a parking cap, and the need to regulate that, and we all felt comfortable at the 100 mark. There's no science in it. It was kind of a feel-good number with respect to staff and ourselves, and again, it's something that is rarely eclipsed by the model that she uses with respect to her business.
And it's an industry standard.
Thank you. Does that answer the question about that?
The parking demand study was done over a 2-day period and during certain hours. I wasn't clear how many people were in the building and in the operation during this survey that found the demand to be 11 parking spaces. Is it anywhere near the number 100?
Scott, can you handle that question, please?
We had chosen a couple of typical days, made sure that we talked to Alana about what was going on, and a couple of typical weekdays. So I think Alana might have a better idea. I mean, we surveyed out there from 3:30 to 6:30. So what is your typical occupancy load during a weekday school day?
I would say it's around 40, 45. When I speak to industry standards, parents at some point expect the curtains and the lights in a theater, in that environment, to speak to the 100, where that number comes from. At some point, we are building a product and parents want a recital on a theater, and that's not what the studio is for. Day to day, again, parents would not want to drop their children at a place where there was 45 kids in a classroom to one teacher. So we only have so many, with the amount of rooms we have, there's only so many children we could have there and have a successful business where we could give the kids the attention that they need. So with that being said, we're going with a lateral move, same amount of studios to same amount of studios. Average is about 45 at any given time.
See, I had really no question about the parking study and the average use of the facility, and I'm very comfortable. I understand the drop-off. I think the design of the project with the 2 parking lots and the studio layout, it all makes sense to this point of there will be these additional events or recitals so often. Certainly, it sounds like you have experience of having larger collaborations and productions out in the community, and that's great. So I like that would be established, that there's a certain cutoff at which point you would go off-site. The concept all makes sense to me. However, what doesn't make quite sense to me, because I'm not sure it's really been studied in terms of parking and parking management, is the number of events on-site beyond the average that will be met with the 13 parking spaces. The whole point of this hearing is to look at parking and impacts the ability of the project to manage its parking on-site and limit its impacts off-site. So again, I think the synergy of this location with the schools offers a great opportunity to expand your regular program without having those off-site. So I'm on board with that. But I am concerned in that we have a large public park across the street, and that public park needs to be accessible to the public, and that's done so with the on-street parking around the park. So I think that events here that could put greater parking demands on the street could possibly affect the neighboring park. But I also see that given this location and the relationship with the school or Girls Inc. or other, offers an opportunity to manage parking with your neighbors in the event that you have larger events. And I have experience working on any number of parking modification type of projects and special event projects where management and cooperation with neighbors is something that this process puts out as an expectation or a solution to manage parking. And so I haven't seen that developed yet, but in my mind I'm having these questions because the number 100 is somewhere double what you all have really looked at. Again, up to 50, 60, somewhere around there. I'm not sweating it at all. But the number 100 didn't make sense to me, as well as I'm not quite sure what the 36 monthly, annually, quarterly, and one-off programs are. How does that relate to 100? Is that up to 100 also? Or are these 36 events, there's no number tied to them? So could you please answer those questions?
Sure, and I would say, yes, they are tied to the 100.
So 100 applies to those?
Yes, and in your packet there should have been an ancillary program statistics, I should say, a matrix.
Yes, I did look at that.
That discusses these. The 36 events was, again, a comfortable number for the team, a comfortable number for the staff, and we thought we could live within that. I will say a couple things about this, and one of them is these ancillary programs are off-peak programs, off peak with respect to classes or camps, and off-peak hour-wise is what I'm talking about.
So what hour do you mean? Because I don't understand that.
I'll get to that. And it's also on weekends. That some of these would be just on weekends as well. But let me take a step back and let me show you what we have found through this matrix. If you can go down to, on the first page, if you go down to Santa Barbara Wedding Dance, that's considered a monthly.
It's just called wedding?
No, I think wedding is the next page.
Is this the first page? Oh, there it is, wedding dance.
Right.
Right, and there's teddy bear above.
Right,
40.
right.
Okay.
And the point is, Alana sees about 12 of these a year, and if you go to the last column, those are 3 people.
That's not the type of thing I'm concerned about.
I understand, and so if you're trying to find absolute numbers within this matrix, you really can't, because some of them just don't make the number that you're looking at, and
the condition said 100.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
We're trying to show you these ancillary programs are minimal programs. There's the Box Tales program. I mean, it's quarterly. They're there for a week or two, depending on their time frame, and they're only talking about 5 people there. And I understand your point about looking for the 100 number. I'm saying most of these aren't anywhere close to that. Okay,
right.
And I give you the 2 examples there, and of course those are on the very low side of the spectrum. There are.
So can I just explain? I have no intention of limiting the number of wedding dances to 36 per year. In fact, I didn't want this condition to restrict programs that would have no impact. So I was really trying to find what I felt would be an appropriate condition. When I first read it, I thought that was more restrictive than it needed to be. If this dance arts program can manage larger events every week on site, that's a lot more than 36. That's 52. Right. So, and I would be open with that.
Do we need to arrive at a number today? Is that the idea?
Well, based on the study and information you've provided, I wasn't comfortable with the number 100. And I wasn't comfortable with the limitation of 36. I was interested in finding more flexibility for the program to expand, which they expressed the intention of expanding, yet the parking study said that it wasn't expanding. So I just really want to get this resolved here today. So what I see is the number is somewhere around 60 that could be completely unlimited. And then there could be X number of larger events, or even an unlimited number of larger events if properly managed with off-site parking options. So,
and I actually met with Santa Barbara Glass and Paragon, which are adjacent to the site, and spoke with them about, when we do, and as I reflected in the letters, they're excited for our presence on site. And I did speak to them about when, these very few times a year, if we have a showcase where we're having families come, would it be possible for us to all work together on parking, especially if it's on a Saturday evening where Santa Barbara Glass isn't open or Paragon isn't even open? And they said, absolutely, let's work together to see what we can do. And likewise, we offered the same to say if there's a point where we're how can we all work together as neighbors to make this work and share our parking? And we do that currently at the Vercal building. We have worked with Calvary Chapel and other places in the past for those very, the 1 or 2 times a year where we do have a showcase or something of that nature.
That's what I figured. So I'm kind of more interested in going that direction. And then, actually, I forgot to bring this up. The one other condition, I read all the letters in support, including the property owner. And I just I'm hoping that the property owner understands the condition. It seems that it shouldn't be a problem. That really, with approval of this project, it's this use being approved. And because he indicated in his letter, that in seeking a possible tenant, he was really having problems finding tenant because of parking. So that in the event that someday down the road, Dance Arts decides to leave this location, the property owner understands that condition means they really come back in and start talking with us again, because it'll be a negotiated parking situation again. So are you confident the property owner understands that condition?
Speaking of it, I'm Jerry
okay,
Beaver.
you're not on the record unless you come up. Could you push that green button? Yeah, that one. Thanks. Hi.
Okay, thank you. Name is Jerry Beaver. My son David has owned the building for about 1.5 years and had difficulty getting the right tenants. We understand the parking situation. We think it's a wonderful use for the property. And they're taking a 10-year lease. In 10 years, I'll be dead, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know. Okay, thank you. No, I think it is pretty clear, given the letter from the property owner, that they understand, too, this kind of situation. Okay, so do we want to hear from the public and have the public hearing and then continue this discussion? Because I think maybe they'll add to our overall knowledge of the project, or do you want to answer?
Well, I want to make a couple points. Okay. One, Steph and I looked at these conditions specifically with transportation staff in mind, and not Ms. Swanson specifically, but just the fact that they need to make findings or give you input with respect to parking. And we were sensitive to that, and we didn't want to overstate our welcome, if you will, here. And so that's another reason that you see these. I am in. I feel your discussions with respect to these numbers are prudent, and there's something we should look into, or not have at all, depending on where you see yourself going with respect to the model that Ms. Tillman has, and how she conducts her business and how she conducts her neighborly business with respect to parking on other parcels as well. So with that, I think we can, you can open up the public hearing, and we'd be happy to listen in and come back and answer additional questions.
Okay.
Okay.
That seems good. Thank you. Okay. I'll begin the public hearing. Stay if you'd like. First, I did review all the letters that were submitted. Oops. As I was saying, I'm about to open the public hearing, and I want to acknowledge that I've read all the written letters that were submitted in advance and attached to the staff report. And then we received one additional letter from Paula Westbury, and I attempted to read it, but unfortunately it was difficult for me to discern given the handwriting. I think she generally expresses concern about the project. Okay. With that, this will be the place we ask people to come up, and if Jerry Beaver want to come up one more time, and pushing the button to turn that on. You push the button at the bottom.
Thank you.
I'm in the unique position of being the adjacent owner, and my son being the owner. We're very concerned about the wild dancing and the noise and all the happy feet jumping up and down. But as the adjacent owner, we believe it's a really good use. We have excellent parking next door, and I've talked to both our tenants, Santa Barbara Glass and the other people, and we're really excited about having this use in the building. And I do hope they're there for many years.
Thank you. Okay, next is Dave Pentard.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. I want to thank you for doing your research on the project. You really asked some really pertinent, good questions. One of the reasons that this location appealed to us was the proximity to the school, the high school, the junior high school, and the girls' club and whatnot. And I think if one of the things that we talked about is if we do get in large venues, at least we do have clients in the community in close proximity that we could go to and appeal to, and to perhaps use additional parking through their means. One of the things that I'll say is, I'm in real estate, and I represented Alana, and we looked at a lot of properties, and very difficult climate, despite what you might hear about vacancy in the area. This CMM1 area has a 1% vacancy factor, and very difficult to find a location that is so in such a wonderful location, and then couple that with just a landlord that understands their needs and wants this use in the community, wants Alana to maintain her presence in Santa Barbara for the kids in the community. And, I wouldn't have probably taken this venture, this client on, had she not been so instrumental to so many people that I've known and learned about what her and Stephen do for these kids. They don't just teach them dance; they teach them an IQ for dance. And a lot of these kids go on and they become involved in many other aspects of dance. Choreographers and production assistants and whatnot. And it's really, really, really. She really has a positive thing going here. This building. Has a limited parking, but where she's at the Fercal building down on Calle Cesar Chavez, she's been there I think 8 years, and she's had the use of 13 parking spaces down there. There's never been one complaint. There's never been one complaint from co-tenants or the property management group or ownership down in that building, because I know those people and I know her immediate tenants and neighbors. And parking has not been the issue there. But I really appreciate your comments, and we'll do everything we can to address them. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker, Ginny Brush.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Jenny Brush. I'm the Executive Director of the County Arts Commission. I will make my remarks brief because you did see my letter, but I just want to speak in wholehearted support. This is a phenomenal group. They've done amazing things with the dance community, and to me, this is just the best thing to have them move to this location. It's a win-win. It adds so much synergy to that energy, to that space, and to be in the close proximity to all of those local venues in which kids can bike to there or walk there is going to add so much vitality to the neighborhood. And so I'm just giving my wholehearted support, and it's just, I think it will be a great asset to the other groups as well. I think it's a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Speaking on everyone's behalf.
Oh, okay.
Should I switch?
No, you can stay where you are. Brett, can you turn that off?
In the interest of everyone's valuable time, I just wanted to kind of assemble some people and allow them to raise their hand to represent what dance arts and this new location can represent to them. And thank you all for your time today. We've heard ad nauseum how convenient this location is, but at this time, I realized initially it's Brandy, so she can raise her hand, but also it's been Sheila and Cease over the years that have had children, and Carl, that have had children in our program. And this new location, we even have some parents that are considering sending their children to Santa Barbara Junior High or high school because of the convenience this represents, instead of having to drive from their homes in Montecito and San Roque and then to drive them 2 blocks. And this now allows them to save a trip, which saves another vehicle. So that's an example of these parents. I just got a call this morning, but Sean Apperson from Paragon is the owner of Paragon, and I did just meet with him the other day. So in addition to what he said in his letter, not only is he excited to help with the parking and work with us on that, but we really do feel like being a one-stop shop for families is going to be really important, that they can have sons and daughters and mom all working out and being together in the same location, which again I think speaks to hopefully eliminating the amount of vehicle traffic and having one vehicle per family. The Marjorie Luke Theater, I have Rick here, Executive Director of the Marjorie Luke. And we're the largest annual renter the Luke has each year. And I think by being close by, it will really allow us to have more future collaborations with them. And by having a small area where we can do intimate performances, we really do help organizations build their audiences so they can eventually go to the Luke and rent. And the Luke really is the premier youth performing arts facility in town. So a lot of groups prime their audiences so they can get to the space where they know they could afford a Luke rental. And I just see this developing even more now that we're so close. I know Ginny already spoke, and thank you again for her words. And also I have Sheila Caldwell, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Dance Alliance, and President Cece Martini Youth. And they are all provide vital services to the community. But these organizations also we work with the artists that they serve. So artists that are involved with projects that Janita offers, that Dance Alliance offers, they need spaces to rehearse and work. And because of our partnership with our nonprofit arts mentorship program, we're able to offer affordable rehearsal space. So practically every Spirit of Fiesta we've had for the last decade has worked with us and used that space for the hours and hours of rehearsal, and for Solstice Parade, and for Bash and Kinesis, the shows that Dance Alliance presents. They get affordable rehearsal space. And so the new space will be even in a more convenient location and serve more people that need a bus line to get to these places. And having their support here is so important. But another thing is that the Dance Alliance also provides scholarships for our students, and County Arts through grants provides scholarships to our funds for scholarships for our students. And many of these students are from Transition House and the East Side neighborhood, and they are a pedestrian community, and they are elated of this new location. So I think this is, again, a synergy of all these organizations coming together. And then really lastly, we've developed this dream space to make lemons or lemonade out of lemons of our current situation. And we've really put together a dream team to make this space the best it can be. Many are working at reduced rates because they too are shareholders in our program with children that attend or people that are close to them that have been impacted by this program. And so we have obviously Brent, we have Carl, we have Dave, we have this Katz Moses Construction, amazing team, and Scott, who are all making this happen. And we just really hope the city will support our modification so we can continue to support the children and artists of Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
And sorry, I forgot my Box Tails. They're one of our affordable rehearsal people. Box Tails runs their program out of our space. So,
Thank you. So I want everyone to know I've just really learned about this as a result of preparing for today's meeting, and I think it's a great project, and I wholeheartedly support it. So what I would like the outcome to be is a support that makes sense, that is truly supportive, and only restrictive where it really needs to be. So I just wasn't ready to adopt these conditions as is. So I had put the word out to staff on Monday that I wanted to discuss this. So I was hoping you all would become prepared to help us get an outcome that makes sense for the program. And when you talk about these collaborations, see, I just think that if that collaboration is a group of 10 people, I don't want that to be one of your 36. And why only have 36? times that 10 people could come and rehearse. So I was trying to find, what's the tipping point at which time the city would say, before you schedule these events, and any number of them, this is one way we could do it, is that you come in and you submit a letter for shared parking with any of your neighbors that indicates that they're not using their parking lot during the time of your event, and that you have whatever sufficient number of parking spaces that you and the staff deem are appropriate to support that event, and that could happen any number of times. That's one way of approaching it. It's fairly interactive with us, but we're only a couple blocks away, and you're going to be talking with your neighbors, and it's all a community event. So I don't know how the staff would feel about something like that. I'm a little rusty on these kind of conditions, but I think we've drafted conditions like that before that just would say any use of the facility over X number of people, and I'm not sure that it's 100. I think it's a little bit lower number than that, based on the information we have. I'm not comfortable with 100. But the applicant shall consult with the city to determine sufficient off-site parking spaces available for the event within 1,200 feet of the property, which is like 3 blocks. At least, in advance of officially scheduling the special event. We don't have to say what number of days, but, the point is that you wouldn't come to us and say, I've already advertised this event. But I don't want to say that it has to be 10 days in advance, because it could be 3, I don't know, it could be 2 days in advance if it needed to be. So that's where I'm coming from. I'd like to be as flexible as possible. I don't know if the number is 60. That's where maybe you and Scott Shell want to... 60? Yeah. At least the information I have, the highest number I see is 60. So that makes me feel a little more comfortable. I didn't see any event on your calendar that was 100. So if you could have unlimited events without this coordination, up to 60 people. I know you all talked about 100, but how do you feel about unlimited events up to 60?
I think the only thing that I would see, and this may be more logistic than anything, for example, we have one event every single December. It's always on the same weekend every single year. Is it something where we could create a long-term arrangement for the next 5 calendar years that we've arranged that this Saturday for the next 5 years we can use the parking at Paragon, something like that. So each year we don't have to continually apply because it's something that's imminent. We know it's going to happen, and it's always the same Saturday in December. And that might be one of those events that gets to that 60 to 75 point.
Right. Well, that would be, you would have a standard letter signed by you and Paragon, and you would just submit it every November 1st. Or
and do we have to come here, or you would just receive the letter and approve?
You could even just mail the letter, but again,
okay.
Somebody could skip across the 2 blocks.
Say our way over. Okay.
Performance art.
As long as I wasn't sure if it'd be coming and
I'd like the condition to just say that you submit it for review, but the review could take a couple of days. Okay. So we definitely would like you to do it in advance.
Okay.
Again, if it's all basic truth, here's the parking lot, they're not open that day, the review, I don't know, I'd like to hear from staff, both transportation and planning, on how do you think this new condition would work? Help us make it work.
Hi, Chelsea Swanson, Transportation. I think we would be supportive of this condition and would ideally collaborate with planning on the review of, I guess we would want to know the number of spaces on the lot you're looking at using and the proximity to your location. We basically look at within, is it an acceptable walking distance to the site? We can approve up to 1,250 feet, linear feet.
12 to 50 is what you said?
1,250 feet, linear feet. It's 500 feet is the standard, but we can make exceptions up to that limit, the 1250. So I think as long as we had those components of information, and we'd probably be working with planning on, it would be a simple review, and I see it as a quick turnaround. I think we could be supportive of that.
Suzanne?
I was wondering if we could modify the proposed condition to say something to the effect of all special events and rentals with more than 60 people shall be either held off-site or evidence provided to the city that sufficient parking is available in the immediate vicinity.
And then delete condition 3?
Altogether.
Right. Does that sound acceptable to the applicant?
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, it's so infrequent, it feels,
But it could be whatever frequency you need it to
Exactly.
be.
Mhm.
And there's no restriction on these things that are called monthly, annually, or one-off at all.
Right.
Then. Because, again, some of them are quite small.
Mhm.
I didn't see the point for that.
Right.
Okay. All right. So the conditions are amended. Condition 3 amended to state that
3 is deleted. 2 is amended.
Oh, 2 is amended. Thank you. 3 is deleted. All special events, recitals, dance productions, and rentals with more than 60 people shall be held off-site location, or may be allowed on-site with advance review of off-site parking for the event within the vicinity, and then put in parentheses like approximately 1,250. I think that'll take care of your neighbors, the junior high, Girls Inc. A lot of places are going to be within that distance. That sufficient off-site parking within the vicinity, 1,250 feet, are available for your use to support that event. Something like that.
Madam Chair, just a technicality here. Would you like our letter to also have like signature lines for city staff? Would that make it easier?
Well, I'd like the letter to be from the Dance Arts and who's ever in charge of the, it doesn't have to be the property owner. I wanted to be clear that it doesn't have to be the property owner of the off-site location, but it needs to be someone responsible for the parking. Because it can be a hassle to get a property owner, but if it's a lessee, that would be a lot easier.
The owner of the Dance Arts. Right.
Well, no,
You're saying and the
off-site
tenant,
location.
the off-site
Say Paragon.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
Oh,
Does
I
he
see.
rent from Mr. Beaver? What if Jerry's somewhere else?
I get it.
So,
Sorry.
yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. We'll have to draft this up. Not getting the exact language here, but we understand the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any final questions or comments? Okay. I support the application and can make the findings recommended in the staff report. With the revised conditions, Condition 1 remains the same. Condition 2 is amended as we've discussed. Condition 3 is removed. So Condition 4 becomes Condition 3. And this decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. Also, the Planning Commission has an oversight authority for all of these decisions. So in the event, once I brief the commissioner that reviews the show actions, they could decide to pull it up for their own review. I will try to be concise and explain this outcome in a way that hopefully that won't be necessary. But if they decide that is the case, then the project would go before the Planning Commission. So I think that concludes the item.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come and join us at the Santa Barbara Arts and Crafts Show. Over 40 years of showcasing some of Santa Barbara's finest artists. Quality, variety, meet the artists, free family fun. Every Sunday along Cabrillo Boulevard east of Stearns Wharf. The Santa Barbara Arts and Crafts Show. Experience the tradition.
Do you notice anything different about this neighborhood?
Yeah, it looks like someone actually cares about it. There's no graffiti, no litter. I don't even see a weed.
Exactly. Why isn't our neighborhood like this?
Hey, guys, great to see you. Come on in.
Hey! So on the walk over, we noticed that your entire block looks really great, like really cared for. How is it that our block's only 3 streets away and it looks all run down and trashed?
Well, we joined the Looking Good Santa Barbara's Adopt a Block program. We're committed to keeping our streets clean and free of litter and graffiti.
The city provides us free supplies, including a work vest, gloves, trash bags, and a graffiti removal kit. And it's time we get to spend together, doing something good for our community.
Wow, I'm gonna sign us up.
Minutes away. Hours of fun. Explore new worlds. Grab a bite. Have a blast. Catch the fun. Stearns Wharf. Playing near you.
We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We meet every day at the same cafe, 6:30, and no one knows she'll be there. Holding hands and making all kinds of plans while the jukebox plays our favorite song. Me and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. We've got to be extra careful, hey, that we don't build our hopes up too high. She's got her own obligations, and so do I. Me and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now. No, 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 no. Well, it's time for us to believe in. It had so much inside. Now she'll go her way, and sugar, I'll go my way. Tomorrow we'll meet at the same place, the same time. And Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. my Lady Jones. I love her, yes I do, y'all. You see, we know, they know, you know and I know. We're gonna have to talk it over, baby. Talk it over, Mrs. Jones. You're my lady. My. You're my sweet foxy thing, yeah. And you know I love you. But listen, we can't meet at the same time, the same place, the same cafe. We better talk it over. We're gonna talk it over. You know I love you, Mrs. Jones. This is going on nowhere, baby. You go your way, I go my way. Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones. Hey, I love her, yes I do.
For today, Monday, March 18th. Do you want to do a roll call?
Chair Zing,
Here.
Kurt Verdeen,
Here.
Scott Hopkins,
Here.
Gary Moselle,
Here.
Stephanie Poole,
Here.
Howard Watage,
Here.
and Chip Cook.
He just walked in the door.
Just came in.
Perfect.
We have 4.
Going to the general business, item A, public comment. Anybody wishing to address the board for an item that is not on today's agenda? Having no pink slips and seeing no one come up, I'll go on to item B, which is the approval of the minutes for the ABR meeting of March 4th. Do I have a first and a second on that?
So moved.
First by Gary, second by Howard.
Second.
All right. Any comments on the minutes?
Chair, on item 1.
On item 1, which happens to be 535 Yananali Street.
Yes. The first item under the motion, I'm just wanting it to be more emphatic and direct statement instead of saying we prefer a reduction in the thickness of the screening enclosure, to just have it say reduce the thickness of the screening enclosure from the existing wall as much as possible.
Sounds reasonable? Sound fine with other people? Okay. Anything else on item 1? Moving on to item 2. I actually had a question, and Kirk, maybe you can help me. On item 5, I wasn't understanding what our intention was.
Yeah, that was a difficult thing to state, but it's referring to the plaster supports at each side of the grills, and they had a section that showed an angle of the plaster that was following the line of the grill on the sides, and we were asking them to change that angle so it went more with the architecture.
Correct. So those grills were really what they were, it's like faux awnings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's different than the grill that was in the half arch.
Yeah, the wrought iron grill. Yeah, it wasn't a wrought iron grill. So I have a suggestion about changing that. Let's see. So I'm going to start at the beginning of 5. For a more traditional appearance, restudy the interior angled plaster detail supporting the sheet metal awnings.
Perfect.
To be more in keeping, etc., with the rest of the architecture.
Okay. Does everyone understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else for item 2?
Mr. Chair, under motion number 7, I believe the consensus was that we were asking them to reduce the width of the planter and not to lower the height of the planter.
Agreed.
So it should read, for a more traditional appearance, reduce the width of the planter so the columns can extend to the ground.
Perfect.
No, he said
it was
could be
either
flush.
or.
It could be flush.
It had to do with the sides. They actually sketched
the
bringing it in.
Yeah. They could either return and stay at the same height or go down to the ground and reduce in height.
Yeah,
being,
one of the options
flush
was
with the
that,
ground.
One of the options that she said, I remember at the time.
No, I agree with that. They also could have taken it flush to the ground as well.
I kind of like the raised myself, so that's why I
want to see how they come back. See what their preference was.
Yeah.
But I do.
That was the intention behind the motion. I mean, that was the discussion. It could be either or, but they needed to resolve that. So our direction was to resolve it in some fashion.
Do you want to put both comments down for item 7? So for a more traditional appearance study, reducing the width and or lowering the planter wall height. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, Kathy. Anything else for item 2? And the last one was a citywide next G comments. Item 3. If there are no other comments. Okay, then I'll call for a vote for the minutes as modified. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to this consent calendar for last Monday, which was March 11th. Do we have a first and a second for that, for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Stephanie is first, second by Scott.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Consent calendar last week, we had item A, 1529 Eucalyptus Hill Road. Was postponed 2 weeks at the applicant's request, so that'll be back next week. Item B, 3554 State Street, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer. And item C, 500 Anacapa Street, was approved with conditions, and consent last week was reviewed by Kirk Gerdine.
Great. Alrighty. With that, I'll call any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item D, which is announcements, requests by applications for continuance and withdrawals.
Mr. Chair, I just saw the applicant for item 2, 222 North Milpas in the lobby, but the architect's not here yet, and he said he's running late. And I believe he's bringing the plans with him. And I just called the applicant for item 3 and wasn't able to reach him.
Might get a dinner break after all.
Well, I'll get you started, and then I'll go see if I can contact the applicant for item 4 to see if they can come in.
Your applicant here.
They're for...
Is item 4 a new item? We shouldn't start a new items until 15 minutes early.
Well, those are our applicants for item 1. So.
Yeah, no, item 4
we'll get started
is
with
a
these
new
guys.
item.
Right.
All right, we'll see what we can do with timing.
Yeah, items 3 and 4, neither of those had a public notice.
Oh, they didn't?
Sometimes we start earlier if we have to.
If there was no public notice, then I guess it's irrelevant.
We still like to stick to that 15-minute rule if possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we'll play it by ear.
Anything else? Comments, staff?
Well, I believe Scott mentioned Scott will be stepping down on item 4.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I'll be stepping down on item 1.
And Gary will be stepping down on item 1.
Okay.
All righty. Moving on to item E, which is subcommittee reports, which I don't believe there are any. So with that, we will go on to item 1, which is 517 West Figueroa Street. Project's here for final review.
I think I know everybody, but I've never seen in the same place.
Pretty daunting, huh?
And Chuck McClure, the landscape architect, should be here, so we can start.
We need to get the minutes of the previous meeting. Hello. I'm going to have Kirk here go through the minutes of the previous meeting, and then we'll have you introduce yourself.
So this was January 23rd, 2012. The motion was project design approval contingent on City Council action on General Plan Policy ER7 regarding air quality, and return to the full board with the following comments. Number 1, the design revisions are appreciated. Number 2, provide a color and material palette. Number 3, study further changes of plane and refinement of the street elevation. Consider continuing the street facade design themes around the corner of the west elevation. And it was a 3-1-1 vote. Zink opposed, Gerdine abstained, and Gillian Mosel stepped down.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by saying staff emailed the board and asked the board to watch the video, since there were so many people who are new to this project, to ask them to come up to speed.
Howard, did you get a chance?
I'm sorry, I did not have a chance.
Okay, so Tip, okay, Scott did review the video. Did you get a chance to review the video?
No, I left Steve.
Okay. So we've had...
One thing I could do is, I do have here the old approvals and how it was, and evolution when in 2008, then came back in 2011, and got the design approval in 2012. And here I made some changes as well, so you want to see all of that.
We'll start with what you have here because you had project design approval. And as you go through, tell us what things have changed from the project design approval to what you're asking for final today for.
Okay.
And we'll discuss it with the board members that are present.
Very good.
Introduce yourself and your team.
I'm Alex Pusho. I'm the architect for the project.
Okay.
And
Chuck McClure, landscape architect.
Okay, thank you.
And this is a project designed by, designed by Mark Weinke. He brought this over several years. I think from 2004 was the first time to finally, long process. And this is an empty lot, and there are not that too many of those in town. This lot was created by breaking the subdivision of a lot from the Union Pacific. And that's how this lot was created. And it had an envelope.
I don't think you need to go with too much detail since the project already seen.
Okay. No, just for the members who don't know it, this is basically the schematic idea. Going through the grading, I think this is the garage level that hasn't really changed that much. I think they have the bicycles on this side, and now they are on this side. But basically, you come in. This is the bicycle access, which becomes also the ADA access. That brings people to the ADA unit, which is on the first floor, right here. And it's a paver and a concrete portion right here. And this section will explain why this is concrete and this is paver. This is the railroad on this side. This is a one-story storage building. Mainly the purpose of this is basically to shield the noise from the common area. This is a noise study, and so the open common yard has the required sound because of this of the breakage. There are some changes to this staircase, the railing over here, and elements of the front elevation, and some awnings throughout. The mass bulk and scale, the height, the footprint, and everything else remains the same. This is the second floor, which is the main with the two staircases and on the access to the 4 units. In previous iterations, there were 8 units. Here and again 4. This is a rental. This is a student housing project. So they have multiple bedrooms, which the staircase leads to the other bedrooms upstairs. There's another unit over here, which is also townhouse. Unit 5 on this side.
The last time it was reviewed by this board, was it 4 units?
Yes, 6 actually. 4.
6?
Yeah,
6 and 2.
Yeah. Before it was 8 and 1. So, this is a roof plan. It's a flat roof plan. It's a membrane. That's some idea how it drains. And large floor plans showing the paving on the first floor, and some pots that we're going to, very, very large planters that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. The other element, the first floor, the ADA unit and the townhouse above. Well, it's reflected since you're not interested in this, or windows and doors.
What's the type of windows, and has it changed?
It was undefined. It is a Milgard bronze color. It's an STC 35 unit on the east side because of the noise from the freeway. This is the paver on the. I'm trying to use on the second floor. It seems like we can afford that. It's not that large an area. And this is how it has changed. As I mentioned, I did change a few things. This is on 1/8 inch. The next page shows the main portion on 1/4 inch.
Can we actually look at this just briefly?
Yeah. So this versus that. I just was, yeah, here. You're gonna see much later on. You'll see the.
Yeah, you're faster.
Somewhere in here we go. Yeah. Yeah, basically here.
Okay.
This basically was a personal reaction, a way to tie the building together with metal awnings on both sides, where I need in order to create shadows, and it goes from here to there. These awnings are carried around on the other side, and trellises. Another change is the substitution of glass canopies, which were used on the entrance. Okay, these are glass canopies. Yes, yeah, one in the front, including the one in the front for a trellis. It's part of the strategy of green up the.
Is this a metal trellis or a wooden?
No, it's steel.
Steel.
Yeah, there's no wood in this project.
Okay.
And the idea is to have different levels, especially coming here from the more visible side. So we have trellises on the fence. I mean, excuse me, vines on the fence, vines on the railings, and finally vines on these elements right here.
Okay. And then this building material, was it different than this one, or are these the same materials?
It's all plaster that indicates a darker color.
Oh, so there isn't lines here? It's just
No, I'm sorry, no. It's just a way to indicate the maybe here, indicate the different colors. This light is not very good. This is. It could look like white when when the sun is out. It's called a mushroom basket. It has a basically color of a mushroom. This is a color for this portion of the building. A color for the doors, the windows, the galvanized, and the roof membrane, which is a white roof. That's as close as it gets sometimes. I mean, this is a white membrane. That also is a cool roof. Let me go through it, and then we'll go back to elevations. I'm sure you have interest in commenting on that. These are the main. Usually they go like this. They have the awning, the balcony, and the car barrier below. The steel trellis and the railing. This is the other. The one in the front is a little bit different. The front staircase. I have a detail here that it's a little bit relates to what we do. This is kind of interesting. Perhaps you can take a look. This is a retrofit in a London subway. The purpose of these things, which I have here, I have another detail, is to basically bring bicycles up. You know, I mean, probably everybody's experienced of going up the staircase with the bicycle. It's, well, in Europe they do it like this. I have modified this sheet to add this detail. I pay attention to the. It's just a little detail, but it would be a nice thing to popularize. You bring this little 4-inch curve for people to wheel their bicycles. Okay. That's just a little detail.
Yeah.
This is the rear staircase, which is really very different from the one approved previously. I carry the same roof. The other one has some kind of not clear if it was concrete or what, or plaster covering all this. I thought it would be easier just to blend it with the rest of the galvanized awnings. It's an open staircase. This is the section through this. The structure has changed completely. It used to be like concrete T's spanning the whole building. And we want to steel to make it lighter, to have less piers. The soil is very it's very loose. I think it was a site or some kind of an uncompacted soil. so we're relying on that. This little thing is a requirement of flood control, not to occupy the space. If we close the building here, we are eliminated an area where water is stored because of the, well, what happens, this is on the west side, the pipe that connects the freeway, the water under the freeway is undersized. The water backflows in a 100-year storm, and it floods this area, so we're not supposed not to minimize this floodway area. Same. This is the section through the small wing. Well, this is interior elevation, which you don't care about. The basic steel details, the awnings, the attachments, the railing, the recessed windows. I wanted to at least recess these windows a little bit.
Those are standard windows?
Yeah.
All the windows are recessed like that?
Yeah, except I couldn't really work on the doors, but there's not that many of these guys. So this is the majority go like this. And a little bit more. It's just basically wall details. Light fixtures, I think you probably would be.
Exterior light fixtures and site lighting.
Yeah, there you go. Here we go. Yeah, this is the light level of. Yeah, so these are the light fixtures. Which is, I reproduced here. It's just it's just this picture right here. It's flash mounted on the ceiling.
So at the exterior doors for each of the units?
This one. Which were we paint the different bronze and color as well. It's shown in the elevations.
And they'll be bronze in color?
Yeah, yeah. We have, well, excuse me, these ones over here, we're going to have a ceiling mounted picture. It's going to be this guy. I mean, a recess. But there are some other ones. This one appears a lot. We have like 16 of them.
The second floor, maybe?
Yeah, on the yeah, a little bit higher on this walkway.
Okay.
Yeah, and the staircase, and yeah, that appears a lot. And I was curious about the light level, and it's pretty much it's not very bright. You can see how the spill is at 0.01 over here. That is pretty good. Well, we have landscaping. Just like I'm gonna let, of course, Charles talk about this. What I want to mention is that we thought a lot about landscaping on this side, and that's why the concept was to really screen it from this side with the different elements, including the second floor pipes.
One on one side.
Yes.
Alex, can you point out where on the elevation that exposed underneath area occurs where the drainage allows? Can you just show how that's represented on the elevation?
On the 1/8-inch elevations?
The what is it?
Elevation.
Where the water goes under the building where the concrete slab is?
Sheet 18.
Oh, yeah, it's more under the section.
Do you see it on the elevation?
Well,
Yeah,
they go right there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It drains to this side, and it goes to the concrete beam from there. I think one of these shows it here like that. Yeah, this the water goes to this side, and it goes right there.
Okay,
And
thanks.
this is for storage and percolation.
I'll just go back to this sheet.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so here we've got the landscape plan. Everything on the, Alex is calling this the west. I was kind of referring to it as the south side. But this is all a bioswale area. You can see that the water comes from the street and from the building roof, and it gets directed into this series of little check dams. And so we're all riparianly and natively planted out there. And then the front, there's a street tree. It's Pyrus kawakamii. We talked to Tim Downey about that. So we've got the street trees, and then we've just got a really tough and long-lived landscape. It's just a nice, tough, strong landscape. We've got some vines coming up on that overhead structure above the driveway, and then along the 101 and the railroad side, we've just got a nice, screen trees of two different types. And then if you'll see, we've got these this ficus repens pretty regularly on the inside. But then if we go over and look at some of these details on the L2 sheet, we're giving, here's a little section through that, we're giving them a little opening so that the ficus can get outside the fence, because the property line's right here. Yeah, because we're thinking this would be ripe territory for graffiti. So that's a custom detail to try and combat that. And then on the second floor, we do have these 42-inch heavy pots or urns, and then this detail shows how we're going to take a stainless cable up to get them to climb up on these overheads that are dashed. And similarly, against the building, yeah. And then we go on to just some of the stuff that the Creeks people are interested these days. And then we're just showing that we're all automatically irrigated.
What's this material that's going to be for the common?
Well, this is just a 3/8-inch angular, just a gravel court. We talked about different things, and we all kind of concluded that just a gravel court with kind of a rubble or a stone retaining. This would be at about seat wall height. And that's our proposal for the open area, a gravel court. And if you go back, you can see how the planting works with that.
And what was it there previous? Or was there never any
It's always been gravel in all three of the reiterations.
Okay.
So some of the plantings kind of come up out of the gravel, but we propose to float the whole thing in just gravel and let the tenants kind of arrange some furniture or do as they will out there.
Okay, great. Anything else for your presentation?
No.
That's it.
Okay, I will open up public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Having no pink slips and no one coming forward, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
we should acknowledge a letter that we received from Paula Westbury with concerns about the project.
Okay.
And a couple of staff comments.
Yes.
There's some question whether the landscape plan meets the water compliance regulations. So if you approve it, could you make a condition that we correct that if we need to? There's some outstanding issues there that haven't been resolved with whether anything needs to be changed or not.
Okay.
And the Planning Commission resolution just asks that the ABR review and approve. Let's see. Well, it says prior to building permit issuance, proposed project grading, landform alterations, structural design, landscaping, and lighting, subject to approval by ABR.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I have one right off the bat, just having to do with minutes from the previous meeting. Item 3 was to study further the changes of plane and refinement of the street elevation, consider continuing the street facade design themes around the corner of the west elevation. So if you can address how you address that.
If you look at that drawing, well, I can.
Hey, no, this is fine.
It's a little bit small, but well, that's a little, especially here. Like here, it looks like, oh, gee, that's a big break, but that thing really is 2 inches in depth.
The original design is 2 inches.
Right. It's just the plain wall. So that.
Let me go back to his elevation.
So it didn't seem, it just seemed really trite and silly to I think the idea that what was the comments, the board wanted more relief, more shadows, more expression of the architecture. And rather than trying to mess with that design, which I thought it wasn't going in the right direction in terms of how it all that design was this, some kind of a celebration of a little window in the bathroom with an indents that it didn't quite relate to the vernacular of the West Side, and I decided to instead simplify that and put awnings and bring the theme, emphasize this difference in plane and break up the elevation with the same way on the front and on the swell side. That's why I addressed that. I know it's not clear, it's not specifically the same direction. I just thought it was more appropriate.
And then there was a comment, I mean, what's happening site plan wise versus there was like a themed wall that was going to be trying to come across here. How did that change?
Well, similar idea. That wall was just basically a continuation of this wall with a little arch that really led nowhere. It was a way to come in and check on the meter, on the electric meter on this side. You know?
So where are the gas meters and electric meters?
Yeah, they're in the front. They're in the front. The electric meters are inside now. Yeah, it just seemed too trite. I'd rather have a fence and landscaping. We're going to put vines on this.
But really, wasn't that always a retaining wall that's
the retaining wall?
From this
the retaining wall. It is still there. It's it's on that side. It's still there. It's a retaining wall with a fence.
So now this is just a normal 4-foot fence.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I have one last question, then I'll kick it to the board. This is for staff. Was there a previous color board?
I was just looking. I don't see a color. We have colored drawings, but no color board. I don't think
I
we
know
got
that
as
was
far
one of
as-
our comments, but I don't remember these colors from previous applications. But okay.
Well, there's this is interest on a dark color. This is one redesign on the. This is the other. These are what's on the way it has evolved.
Okay.
2011. 2011, the other one 2008. And the 12, I don't have it in color, but I can see the idea of the darker bottom floor and light on top.
Sure.
Go on to Kirk.
Alex, on the previous proposal, I'm not seeing it noted here, but do you know, it looks like there was a different material. There's at least a couple of different materials, and not just changing in color.
Hardy board siding, maybe this is what that is.
I think it was it form?
Board form concrete.
Board form concrete.
Okay, that's right. And then there's also looks like there's horizontal siding up here, but that's been eliminated.
We could bring it back. I mean, that kind of siding that would be easy. If you feel strongly that that's something.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to clarify. Just trying to clarify.
Yeah, it wasn't clear if it was blocked or it was covered or exposed or.
And then also on the west elevation, it looked like there was an eave that was also being carried down and then providing a break at between levels. Is this, and that's been completely eliminated too.
Well, the eave is there. The eave is there. So
okay,
a couple
but
of feet.
this bringing down to the ground.
Yeah, I think he had some. He was bringing. Yeah. If you look at the plan, there was a way to do that. Look at the enlarged floor plan somewhere there. I'll find it. One second. Okay. Now here. Yeah, it's that kind of a thing.
A fin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just couldn't bring myself to do that.
Okay.
It's designed for prerogative.
And then also, there was stonework shown down below, and now it's open. I'm just pointing out some of the differences.
It's true.
Because
the openness had to do with a flood control requirement. It's going to be heavily landscaped. It is true, it's different, but I don't think it'll be that visible.
Well, you go and then I
another thing. I'm just also pointing out that there were chimneys. Also, there's no fireplaces being proposed.
No, they were not proposed in the first place either.
Oh, they were
like a super
design elements.
Thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They were address numbers. Super. There were just noticing changes having to do with this being open, and this had more of a closeness to it, and if there was a reason. And then this is now cable rail, where before this was a solid wall.
Right.
Was there any sound requirements that you needed to maintain?
No. The sound requirements are met by the construction of this wall and the openings. All the windows are rated. That was not didn't help with that. This is what really meets the building, and this wing meets the sound requirement of the open yard, which is in the back of the building.
And so you're proposing this to be plaster B2, and all of this is plaster P1.
Yeah.
P2, P1.
Yeah, one would be over block, and the other would be on strap construction.
Just another question. So, and then I'm just noticing that this long support for this overhang, is that being generated by the size of the overhang, or you just felt it was a nice design element? Or?
Yeah. It could be shorter. A relaxed way to support the element.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Scott, it looks like you've eliminated some balconies on the second floor from the previous.
That is correct. I think the balconies in reality were more of a leftover from the condominium projects when it was a lot more upscale, and we just need one balcony. It's basically a programmatic need. We just need one balcony to make one bedroom out of the student housing complex, and they want to have a balcony and the other ones don't. And it just seems superfluous.
Mm-hmm. And then, just to reiterate, these lines don't indicate a scoring or anything like that, it's just a change of color?
It's just a change of color, yes.
Okay. And then, what is the detail for the top of that wall? Is that a plaster?
Yes, with a little bit of tile on top. In the enlarged elevations, it's key. It will be something like this, maybe like that.
Okay. Where is that?
That would be that.
Okay.
Alex, is it a necessity that all of these have to be open? For example, like could this end one be closed, or do these all have to be that way? Just wondering if to bring the building down more to the ground instead of just all stilts there, is there a way to bring that down? Any of those?
Yeah,
it seems like you could grade the underneath so that the water would still flow around.
Well, back and forth with this. This is what we really need to do, is to actually push it. Yeah, we need to bring this in there.
What is it? That's some sort of drainage mechanism?
Yeah. This is the storage. This is to retain. It's not really flooding. It's backflows when it floods. It is to retain the water. There are two things, and this big pipe is
controlled release, retaining controlled release. Is that the idea?
Well, that was
all the roof, I guess all the roof and hardscape water ends up in this chamber.
That's the second thing. There are two things. Yeah, one is this is the typical swamp, tier 3 kind of thing. But the excavation around is to retain on site. When this thing floods, the water comes this way. There is a culvert here which is undersized, and the water starts flowing back, and it takes time to settle. And that's a requirement, not to alter the original geography of the place.
Okay.
But to answer your question, perhaps a little, it could be massaged a little bit, not too much. I would rather try to hide it with landscape would be my first preference.
Questions from other board members, and if not, we can move on to comments.
One other quick question. Are these a different color plaster, the recesses?
No, at least not at this point, no.
What is the color of the roof? You mentioned membrane.
It was a cream color.
It's just a membrane. This membrane.
So it's a reflective roof.
A cool roof.
Yes, a cool roof.
And
not the coolest, not the. But this qualifies as well.
Tip, you can ask questions if you have any. Just refrain from voting since you didn't see the video.
All right.
You don't have any questions? Okay. This light fixture here is outside. It's really not outside a door. It's just for the outdoor area. Is that what the purpose of that light fixture?
Yes, it's the only one there. Yes.
For the lighting of this outdoor area, is that what its purpose is?
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
And this seems a little tight to that coping. Is that how you intended that to be?
Well, it is a function of the way that the roof drains. I could study lowering the awning, perhaps, or I would hate to raise the.
Where are the elevations of the previous? I just want to see this elevation here along the railroad. Not this one, the last. The last one.
Yeah, that is the same, right? Yeah, it's the same. Same thing.
There was a regularity to these openings that was nice, and you seemed the openings seem to be kind of random in this newly proposed scheme.
Yeah, it had to do with structural elements. There's a wall here, and this could be worked out, and these are not movable. And I have to accommodate
Is there a way to achieve more regularity?
The fence also, ends up covering that, but I know that's not kind of a legitimate answer, but just.
No, I tried to keep the rhythm throughout, and here I could not, and I could not move this part.
So this fence, you're saying, blocks the view of that?
Yeah. Plus the last,
vines.
And there's a landscape architect question for you. So in between here, there's lots of planting.
Yeah, exactly. There's can I draw on this or there's screen trees that are up to scale, and then there's vines that do this, and then there's also vines that go on the plant on the building this portion, and then there's also a big pot here that gets up on this guy.
Okay. Let's go into comments. The person here, the applicant, is looking for final approval, and if we think it's there, we say yes. We can make comments and take it to consent, or we can make comments and bring it back to full board.
Mr. Chair, one more thing needs to be addressed, and that's the stormwater management program. Alex, did you bring anything with you, any further documentation that shows
No,
that
I
requirement's
should
been
follow
met?
up with the civil engineer, with Dale Weber, and he claims to be in touch with Autumn Machaca, right?
Autumn Malacca.
Malacca, yeah, and we've been going back and forth. I really do not have anything to show.
Okay. So that would have to be demonstrated prior to a final approval, but we can follow up at consent, maybe.
What I heard from the civil engineer is whatever it happens, it will not alter the landscape plan. It will be underground. So if it alters the landscape, of course, we're going to have to do something. We'll come back.
One last quick question. Can you reiterate where the colors are going? Which plaster color direction?
Yeah, this is the main plaster color. Okay. This one right here. And which it looks kind of sick under this light, but it's not. It's a happy color. It's a happy color. It looks pretty white outside.
And then the base
and this
color
this is the base color. Yeah. Yeah, and this one would be for the doors.
Okay.
also changed this window right here, which is shown in the corner window. Yes, just the full, yes, the corner window right there. It's just, I can put it back if you guys want it. I can only say that. It was I just felt it wasn't appropriate. It was the only one in the project like that.
Mr. Chair, I think I'm ready to make some comments.
Okay.
Move on to that.
Go for it. We're ready for comments.
Okay. I appreciate the additional effort that's been put into the design and simplification and trying to meld it more with the West Side vernacular. But I also do remember very clearly this was one of the first projects that came before the board when I first came on the board, and that's why I abstained. It was the first month, and I didn't have a chance to pre-review the tapes at that time, but I remember very clearly reviewing this. And the comments that were made about the north elevation in conjunction with the west, because this north elevation, which if I remember correctly, the board was very fond of, except for the fact that, as you pointed out, some of the changes in surface material were very small in terms of the dimensional surface changes were small in relation to what appeared to be more substantial on the elevation. And so we were looking to have that increased more so that those shifts and massing definitions were more definitive. And more importantly, that this kind of asymmetric playfulness that's going on the north elevation be carried around that corner, because once you turn that corner, you get this very repetitive stacking of units along the side, which differed strongly from this north elevation. And so we were wanting to have more of that playfulness of massing and of detailing continue to some extent on this side. So now I feel like that asymmetric playfulness that's here has been eliminated, and I'm not sure to the benefit of the project. The other thing I mentioned is while I'm focusing on the north and the west is because I feel like those are the two most public parts of the project. The east elevation facing the railroad, there's the bike lane there and the handicap access, but that's a more or less dead zone in a sense. It's not visible or as visible, let's say, to the neighboring residences and to the public as the north and the west. So we were focused on those two particularly. And I think my comments would be that to try and reintroduce to that north elevation some more of that playfulness that was in the original proposal, and likewise to carry that around also, at least to some extent, on this more public portion of the west elevation. I think as the project recedes and these areas become less visible and therefore repetition is more acceptable, but that at least for the front portions of the project to try and bring some of that back. And then I also really enjoyed the changes in material that were originally proposed in helping to break up, which is otherwise rather uniform massing arrangement. And now we've lost that as well, and all we have is a change in color plaster. So again, that some of that relief from the mere repetition of surface and massing has been lost, and I'd like to see some more of that come back.
I'll go next, and Stephanie, and then Scott. The reason why I wanted to go next was because I wanted to just be a different opinion from what Kirk mentioned. I voted against this project because I didn't like it because it was too asymmetrical, and the direction that you went is more in my keeping as a designer, in the sense that you took this west side and you moved it to the front versus taking the asymmetricalness of the front and moved it to the side. I understand what you're doing, so I like the direction this is going. Minor things that are not working is that this plane, if there was a way that you could put 2 or 3 feet of separation between here and make that work, I think that would be a little better resolution. That's minor in some regards. This spacing is not as graceful and as peaceful as the previous solution. The previous solution seemed to have more of a completeness to it, the way the boxes were here. And because this is also now open railing versus solid railing, this could be an older generation.
No, this is the... am I getting confused? Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, you're right.
It's just that this opening, and I wanted to point it out to other people so that they could sense it, that I'm sensing that this spacing looks too much like the underside of a pier, so it looks very utilitarian versus a little bit more designed rhythm. And once again, very minor. I don't know why this long vertical leg of this thing is extended as long as it should, but it somehow messes up, in my mind, what's going on here, and it adds a little bit more of confusion. These are minor tweaks. And then this, as nice as it is, the long cables, perhaps there's another way you can address this without such a long cable with maybe brackets underneath or however, but I'm glad Kirk mentioned that because I've never noticed that before. The part that I will concur is the loss of building materials is the loss of texture, and that's very important in this thing, is to have a different texture, whether it was board formed concrete, split face CMU, hardy board siding, something just to give some more interest, and you have opportunities to without being too busy, which I felt the previous project was too busy, which is why I voted against it. So I wanted to say that in the opposite of kind of what Kirk was saying, even though I did concur with some of his agreements. Stephanie?
Yeah. I see the simplification of it, but and I appreciate that, but I think you went a little too far, and I think it needs a little more design refinement with regards to materials and studying the possibility of bringing these elements, as Kirk suggested, I believe, down to the ground and allowing still allow water to flow in and out of this space, but tying it to the ground at the ends, and the rhythm of the openings on the other side. Studying more regularity there, studying the awnings and how they terminate at close to the copings, and studying the way that the detail of the plane change on this west elevation.
West or east?
West elevation.
Which can you point to?
This base detail.
This.
Plane, yeah.
Study that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you be more specific in what you meant by that?
It
was just too much of a ledge, like a pitch and stoop?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll go on. Okay. But overall, we lost some simplification, or went too simplified.
Yeah, especially that Figueroa Street North elevation. I'd like to see more change in the plan with that front wall, as somebody else suggested. Maybe perhaps extending the trellis determinates roughly could extend out a little further.
Okay. Anything else? Move to Scott.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. I heard Kirk's comments, and I think I agreed with most of them. I think the front elevation on Figueroa lost something with the asymmetry. There was a charm to the asymmetry. I think this works, but my preference would be the more asymmetrical facade. Yeah, I was sad to see the board form concrete go, but I completely understand that. It's a very expensive material. I think a change of color there is important. I think you've done the right thing there. And I think the detail you have now, for me, it works. There's enough change in plane at the top of the formerly board form concrete that I think that's a nice detail. It's a good solution to the project. Overall, I think it's very well detailed. I like the canopies, and the railings seem very well detailed. I am missing the kind of change in material here. I think that could be where you formerly had it look like horizontal siding of some sort. I think that could even be done with a change of color. I think it would add a little more life to the elevations. The symmetrical facade on Figueroa, one's a bedroom window, one's a bathroom window, I think I'm right. It could be a smaller window and add some asymmetry at the bathroom. Something as simple as that may solve it. And the very minor point, but on the old one there were some larger graphics for the address that were a nice counterpoint on the elevation, and that might help that out a bit too. And I think Stephanie's comment on maybe enlarging the canopy or the overhang of the canopy edge to where the steel hits it, maybe there's a different way to detail that to add a little more interest. It looks a little static now, the way the guide wires or supports come down. On the whole, I think it's a very nicely detailed project, and I think a few tweaks and we'll be there.
Two questions. One for Scott. Can you comment about the openings along the east, how it's been changed, and comment about the overhang along the east?
Yeah.
Just compared to the way it was, really, for you, how it is now and how it's going to get built.
I have to agree. It was a little more unified previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about this cable and this look? Even though this is a carryover of the previous design, the awning thing has gotten wider, so now it's required to...
I like the new design.
All right. Stephanie, your comments on this, because you didn't comment anything, I don't believe, on this one, on the canopy on
the front of this one up here?
Correct.
They don't bother.
Okay.
I mean, extending them out a little farther so there's more of an overhang. Equal, I mean, the same, just a little more extension would help it. I think it terminates a little too short. Would help. And also, a comment about the vinyl windows. We typically recommend metal or aluminum clad windows, and I appreciate the color that you've selected, and I think it's going to punctuate those openings well. But I would like to see it in a metal clad instead of fiberglass or whatever, vinyl.
I missed that about the windows.
I thought it looked like aluminum clad.
That's what I thought.
Well, he was very coy in how he worded it, but I did see the word Milgard vinyl on your window schedule. I allowed you to speak.
I have a question for the board in general. Is there a precedent that we've set that we're not allowing vinyl windows in the city of Santa Barbara? Or, I mean, this is not a white vinyl, obviously. It's an upgrade. It's a darker color.
It's just been an established precedent that the white vinyl windows that we have seen, because of the width of the sash that goes around it and the amount of glass that you actually get, has been a deterrent.
He has detailed it well, I will say, and the way wrapping them and putting them on
recess
them to the interior face of the wall is good. Is a nice detail.
In general, I think oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, if it actually gets built that way, great, but I'm dubious.
It's the opposite. You can end up with the super thin aluminum windows, which have no sash at all.
Well, it's going to
almost
look, they could look like steel windows, which has very thin.
True, but they have some dimensionality. Right. They're not the flat extrusions. The glass is right up against the.
Well, those are the retrofit. The ones with the big flange are the retrofit, like the ones with the.
Okay, yeah.
They come on the outside.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're against. We've had several projects come before the board where, sizable buildings, multi-residential buildings, and we're proposing to replace all the aluminum windows with vinyl that are just slapped on the outside with a large flange. That's what we're opposed to. Yeah.
No, I had them.
This is different.
I'm sorry.
I want to move on to if Kirk has anything else to add, and then let's wrap this up with direction. Do you have anything else to add?
I think I already said what I felt.
So with the board, I'm getting a sense that the board would like to see this back in front of us one more time instead of going straight to consent with some refinements.
Chair?
I'm sorry, Tip, you
Well,
have
no,
any
that's fine. Because I was not at the initial presentation, should we completely abstain from this?
Abstain from voting, I would like that, but if you have some generic comments based upon our
That would help the
discussion.
applicant. That would help the applicant.
As long as it doesn't take him down a tangent. Word your words carefully. But yes.
All right, I think I tend to agree with comment from Kurt about the so if it helps the applicant at all, because I see that there's a split in the directions on what you like to see and what
I'm basically alone because the other people kind of like the asymmetrical play and they're asking for him to return some of that, which is fine. So that's going to be the direction for the applicant, is to change the window size on Figueroa and add some more character.
Which I think that would be greatly help the project.
Anything
I think
else
a nice
that
project.
Anything else you concur that we talked about that you want
No,
to put
I
your
just think I
support behind?
pretty much agree with all the comments that Kurt made. And
Howard, do you want to add anything? Sorry about
Well, there were some comments about the steel canopies and the awnings and all that, and not the awnings, but the way they supported them. A couple little things. The depth of the floor of the steel balconies is about equal to the depth of the steel canopy over the entrance and over these canopies that are bracketed out by rods. And one is supporting a heavy load, and the other one is actually an aerial thing that just hangs from the air. And it would seem, again, with this refinement, that maybe you might want to make the balcony depth a little heavier. And also, the great thing about steel is that if you support it at the quarter points, you get a use a lighter section. And so by supporting it at the end, you have to have the strongest, the heavier section. And since they were talking about extending these awnings, or I guess they're called canopies, might be just move the brackets closer together so that the awnings kind of go beyond the supports. So somehow in steel that makes a lot of sense. But I do think that the detailing is exhaustive. It's great. Very nice job.
All right.
And I'll stop with one comment. Is that this is again one of these projects that is is pushing the envelope of what is Santa Barbara. There's almost no courtesy to Santa Barbara. This is really an industrial project almost, and I wish it could be tuned a little bit so that it says, like, the architect has lived here for 25 years, maybe something rubbed off, who knows?
I thought I had done exactly that.
All right, let's wrap this up and move on. I noticed that you're writing some notes. Would you like to formulate a motion?
I'll give it a try. I'm not sure I'll be incorporating everyone's comments, but I'll give it a shot. So it will be continued back to the full board indefinite, or 2 weeks?
I think I should come back in 2 weeks. If you can put me in 2 weeks so I can at least get a little bit of definition.
Study providing additional asymmetric character to the Figueroa Street elevation and to portions of the west elevation. This could include massing, greater shifts in massing, material changes and or color changes, and or window sizes
Great.
If possible, portions of the lower floor on the west elevation should be brought to the ground, or some other way. This wasn't discussed, but perhaps larger columns on the face to help ground the project on the west elevation.
The staff also asked that the landscaping meet the water compliance requirements.
He's not
Okay.
done yet. Let's
Okay.
That's no
Yeah,
problem.
no, we can add that, please. And I think there was other comments about
we could just stop there and
color shifts on the east elevation as well, color and or material shifts to provide further the appearance of further massing articulation on that elevation. Also, there was a couple of comments about extending the overhang of the canopies past the last support. And I think that's about it.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Scott, would you like to second that?
I second it.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Well, you already added the part
Okay.
about that.
If it's okay with the maker of the motion, if we can add that the applicant is to work out the stormwater management with staff prior to coming back to the board, so that that has been addressed. And then if we can also add to the motion in asking the applicant to study the rhythm of the openings along the garage at the east elevation. And then for Stephanie's comment, add to the, it's kind of on the west elevation to study the awning at the window that's close to the roof parapet. And come up with, and if this is the way you want to present it, then you just say this is the way we want to keep it, but this flagged as something looking peculiar. Questions by anybody else, or anything else to add to the motion? This is
If we could, on the next presentation, also have the details keyed in on the elevations, or are they
Yeah,
on the quarter inch?
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah, yeah, they are. They are there.
Thanks. Never mind.
Howard had one comment, and then I wanted to
So
open.
this is, if it's okay with the maker and seconder, about the depth of the floor framing of the balcony, if it would be more substantial as opposed to the same as the canopies.
I heard the comment, and it's more like that's a design flair if he wants to add it.
Yeah, this piece, this depth right here. It's the same. What is the same as this? This is aerial, and this is like floor.
I want to have one discussion that Stephanie brought up, which is great because we're so many different people with different sets of eyes, and we all pick up on one thing that that no one else did. I never picked up on this one light fixture on the wall, and this purpose of this light fixture was for the common outdoor, and it seems a very innocuous, but it also is a very odd placing light that's going to be on with a photocell. If any of the other board members have a concern, we can add it to the motion. If we just want to let it go, because that's his design flair, we can.
When I study eliminating it, I'll look at it.
I wouldn't eliminate it, study alternate exterior lighting for this area, so people will use it at the evening time, but putting just,
Okay,
that just seemed odd.
very good.
Any other comments?
Question for the board. Did we reach a consensus whether this window is acceptable?
We didn't. We avoided it.
We did.
I mean, it's a non-retrofit colored vinyl window.
It's an important point, so let's add it to the motion that the board is finding the vinyl windows acceptable because of the quality of the detailing, the recess that's provided at the windows, and the color of the windows.
Okay. So with that, I'll call for a vote if there's no other discussions. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Abstentions? 2. And then the next time it comes back, you two can jump in.
Just let me ask you a question. Especially I think Howard brings a very good point, and that's what I try to do. Do you think I did not move that in the direction of Santa Barbara? I'm just asking the question.
Sorry?
So you said why? I think the whole purpose of this. Yeah.
Your question is moving it into the direction of Santa Barbara.
I thought I had done that, and I just really want so we communicate. I thought the idea is I found a project that was, I thought some elements, especially this staircase, the corner window, and elements of the front elevation that were really out of context for the west side. And I tried to bring that. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me, because
I understand. My point was actually is very simple. Is that the use of stone. This is an all steel building, which is what it is. That's the aesthetic.
Your mic. Okay, keep talking.
No wood, no stone, stucco, nice colors playing off of each other. No, it's very hard. It's a very hard building. Hard, sharp line and so forth. And sometimes maybe just, instead of a sharp line up there, if you just had a little trim, not an OG, just a little detail, some kind of a little detail. It's something that the eye catches as opposed to just seeing the edge of something. You do have the playing of the forms. There's a little bit of...
She'll tell you what's up.
But there is very little relief from the 3 stories. From the ground up to the top, it's a mass. And you're just playing with ins and outs and ups and downs with mass. I suppose that would mean that I would be more in favor of the asymmetrical approach.
I'm saying that I started with an approved preliminary.
So, but anyway, that's to answer your question.
I would say you were successful. To answer your question.
Okay.
You opened up the can of worms, and now you can get everyone's comments. Tip, and then Kirk, or Scott, and then I want to jump in.
In my opinion, once again, I'm new on the board, but I feel that somehow, we should stop design by committee, because I feel that we should give the architect certain freedom, liberty.
If you can focus on, because we're having a conversation.
I think that we should give the architect some freedom, liberty to do what he feels appropriate for his building, instead of commenting on, the distance of the support for the awning or the OG molding. And I feel that's really dangerous because we all have different opinions on how we do things. And if we can focus on the big picture, I think it would help. And I don't think we should personally play the role of trying to design the building for the architect. And the reason I made that comment because both of us we've been on both sides of the fence, and there's nothing worse than you have a vision doing a certain thing and the board everyone tell you to do something else. So that's just my opinion on the whole thing.
I think you could argue that the former design had an exuberance that was out of place with the west side. I think you've done a fantastic job of tempering that.
Okay. I would actually say that you've taken it back into a more simplified version, because I voted no against it beforehand because it was a little bit too out of balance. The one negative thing that I would say that I'm not going to give you much static on is the colors are a little bit too Santa Monica-ish and too, I want to say, urban for Santa Barbara. We are lighter, and if it was a wooden trellis and if it had more browns and it just had a different color and a color scheme to it, it would feel like it would fit in instead of being too urban.
Good. Very good. Thank you for your comment. Thank you very much.
Glad you asked that question.
Well, I did. I think it's kind of good to communicate.
All right. We are on to item 2.
Mr. Chair, clarification for the minutes on that item. Did you vote against it?
I voted for it this time.
Okay. Thank you.
So I keep 2 of these.
You can take 2 of them with you, yes.
Nice job, Alex.
Take a nice nap out there.
Did you watch or not?
I think you had a good point there, but It's so easy to just.
Mr. Chair, our applicant for item 2 is still not here, but it's just about time for item 3. So how about if we switch items 2 and 3?
Yeah, subdivision helps it look like it would look like something on going up his street.
Can we keep that color board?
Yeah.
But then I need to fix it, right? I need to bring it back.
You may.
Yeah, because
Spanish top, you know, Monica body and.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree.
Can't win.
We're going to move on to item 3 for tonight. Postpone item 2 for a while. And I need to find the right agenda. Wait 1 second.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Many years.
Many years.
Good, many years. Did you take that project over to Mark? Mark went out of town.
I know. We're on item 3, which is 1080 Coast Village Road. It is a new project. This is a proposed for alterations to an existing commercial building that include the following. Replace the facade, new landscaping, hardscape, and restriping of an existing parking lot to provide 5 parking spaces. Coastal review is required. This is a concept review. Have your name for the record and your presentation, and give us where this is happening in Coast Village Road, some landmarks.
Good afternoon. Yes. You know, I do. Yeah. Okay. Do we send it down this way?
Yeah. I know exactly where we are.
Okay. Okay, I think a lot of you, excuse me, my name is Tom Oxner, project architect, and this is Jeff Manelli, the property owner.
Welcome.
And I think a lot of you are going to recognize the building, driven by it many times. It's originally was a gas station, and then it became a pool supply store, and then I think it turned into a rug shop for a while. So the architecture that exists on it right now, I think, is reminiscent of the pool supply, and I think that's the shape of those windows and those curved round openings there. Below that is some of the residual gas station below the structure, and so what we're trying to do is really just give the project a facelift. The project description is really to retain the commercial use, the retail use of the building, and to not only give the building a facelift, but to also make it more attractive and fitting to Coast Village Road, but to create and organize the pedestrian and vehicular circulation and define some parking spaces. The use of the building will be retail, and currently there is a portion off here. There's a wall right here which would be coming down, so the perceived length of the building will be shortened. The idea is, and it's still a little bit unclear, what the required parking will be, and I suspect we'll come back to you with maybe a slightly different site arrangement with the sidewalks and the parking, as planning has still yet to determine the number of spaces, and then transportation as will help determine the configuration. So, but currently the site flows with an vehicular access off Hermosillo on the corner and off Coast Village Road. And to some degree, the circulation around the building may help with whatever the parking requirement is. But specifically, I think right now we're looking at the scope of work is to take the canopy that projects out to the right-of-way off, and then to work within the existing envelope and to create a facade that looks more retail and more attuned to tile. So in terms of the plan, a lot of the existing framed wall, it's wood framed with some stucco. There's been some exploratory work going on there, and the idea is, again, to stay within the perimeter and to organize the entry with some symmetry, and create something that looks pedestrian friendly from Coast Village Road. the early sketches are to go with a Mediterranean feel and not introduce a Spanish roof, but to keep it with parapets and to draw a lot of attention to the entry and provide a lot of windows for the retail nature of the building, awnings to accent the building, basically the same height. But in concept, this is kind of where we're going with it.
Do you have a landscape plan at all, or any ideas for landscaping?
You know, we don't until we really get our parking sorted out, and
Okay.
I think the closest thing we've got is what you can see on the site plan. There are some opportunities to landscape areas that aren't currently landscaped right now.
I think that was a great presentation. So I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing no one, I will, staff has no letters either. Move it back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. We did get a public comment letter expressing concerns from Paula Westbury.
Okay.
And just a couple of staff comments. There's maybe the applicant covered all this, but there's a 10-foot front setback, so those two proposed parking spaces closest to Coast Village Road wouldn't be allowed. And reviewing the archive plans, we found that there was no evidence of any parking on this site. So we consider it to be non-conforming with 0 parking spaces. But also that review of the archive plans showed a few square feet, about 200 square feet at the rear, that seems to be unpermitted. So that little bit of square footage requires 1 parking space. So we would require 1 parking space and hopefully get more than that if they'll fit. And transportation also indicated that driveway on Hermosillo is too close to the corner, and they'll most likely ask that driveway be closed off.
Well, at this point, I want to say the ABR's comments are going to be about the architecture of the building, and the site planning, because it deals with the parking, is going to be addressed at another meeting when you hammer out all those details. But thank you for pointing that out to us.
Tony, just to clarify, you said that the 2 spaces closest to Coast Village Road would not be allowed? Is that number 2 and 4 on the plan?
Right, because
Okay.
there's a 10-foot setback in that C1 zone for Coast Village Road, even though it's a commercial zone.
All right.
Is the setback from the sidewalk or from the property line?
It's from the right-of-way. Typically, that's the back of the sidewalk.
Is there not an exception for parking to encroach within 5 feet in that zone?
No.
There isn't.
So questions of the applicant from the board having to deal with the architecture of the building, what's being proposed. And the site planning, we can give some comments and some feelings. And if there are no questions, let's just...
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Tip.
My question is about, let's say you're providing, 5 spaces on site? Is it your requirements?
No, we were, the initial planning review showed that historically there were 5 spaces, but they were never configured. So we're under the premise right now that we need to provide 5.
I see.
And therefore some kind of, they don't clearly fit on the site, but if we need to provide 5, this is how we would provide 5.
So what it means is based on staff comments, if you don't have to, then you would not.
Yes. I think
What
that's-
about the service yard in the back? Is it the requirement from
That would
property
be
owner?
that would be a program requirement to
Program
maintain
requirement. I
some
see.
of that. Yes.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah.
I'll go to Gary.
Are you proposing any trash enclosure or trash area on the project?
I would think in back is where we would have that sorted out. Yeah.
Okay, Howard?
What is the material of the window sash and frame?
If you've gotten to that point, or what are your ideas?
They would be wood.
Canvas awnings?
Yes.
If there's no other questions, we can go to comments and wrap this up quickly.
I'll jump in.
Jump in.
I think it's a huge, great step for an eyesore that's been around Post Village Road for quite some time with that 70s diagonal style. So I think the project is headed completely in the right direction and 100% for it. I would hope to see that we can get some trash enclosures noted on the plan and deal with the parking with the city, the requirements. And if we do get a larger setback, maybe some more landscaping at the street. I think it's headed 100% the right direction.
I would like to really landscape. I mean, my idea is to really have some, for my own, never mind the cities, for my own benefit, I would love to really do some great landscaping.
Well, they're giving you an extra 5 feet to work in.
Yeah.
I should say they're taking 5 feet.
I'd rather those 2 spaces, but...
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything different than what Gary has said? Because if not, I'm going to ask him to put that in a motion. Tip.
Matter of fact, yes, I definitely think this is a much improved than what's right now. I just have one comment to the applicant. I feel that maybe the front could be maybe just a little bit taller. It might help because the difference between the front end and the side is too close apart to really set a statement. It's already a statement, but I feel that maybe just a little more might help. Might want to consider that it's up to the applicant.
Okay, that's just a comment. All right.
I have a couple comments.
You're up next.
So the site planning is, I realize there's lots of unanswered questions, and I wish some of those had been addressed before it was reviewed by the board, because this access is not going to be here, and that means that both of these, probably neither of these parking spaces will be here. And that, you've designed the building based on this walkway that comes in between the parking, so that's all going to change. I mean, this all could change. And I would like to see that change, because I think what detracts from this building for me is the fact that you're going to put the cars right in front of the building. So if there was a way, for example, to have parking occur back here, and since this exit has to be moved, perhaps it's something like that. I don't know, but if there is a way to not have the parking be directly in front of the building, I would be in favor of that. And then the other comment is that I obviously it's going in the right direction, but I think just some of the detailing, which will be really critical since it's just such a simple building, and this very obvious symmetry of it and so on, that the cornice detail, the way the flat roof transitions to the parapet, how all of this comes together and how it's detailed, the way the stone is detailed, that it's real stone and not imitation, and the way the thickness of the arch and all the pieces, that all of that's going to be really important to look at carefully and have it be studied carefully.
Thank you. So if there's nothing else, Gary, I'd like to appoint you to make a motion.
No, really.
Indefinite continuance back to full board once the site and parking has been worked out with transportation.
All right, so we have indefinite continuance, full board. We'd like to have, see it back here at the board. The project is headed in the right direction. And we would like to see the trash enclosure someplace on the site. And we look forward to further details of the front architecture, including the stonework and the archway. Some board members would like to see perhaps the entryway be increased in height or have some more variation between the existing parapet and the new entry facade. And we look forward to seeing the changes about the parking to see how that affects the landscaping and the circulation.
Beautiful. Is there
Second.
some- Perfect. Second by Stephanie. Any other discussion about the motion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much for making a great change on that street.
Thank you.
Is item 4, we're a half hour early, and item 2 is not here, so we take a 10-minute break?
Yes.
All right. Then we'll take a 10-minute break. So we're on item 4, which is 1419 Delavina Street. This is a new item, and I'll briefly go through the project description, and I'll have the architect present himself. This is a proposal to rebuild 2 non-conforming buildings that were destroyed by a fire in 2011. The size of the project is non-conforming to the residential density, parking, setbacks, and building separation. The buildings must be replaced like for like. The 2 buildings are 2,000 square foot 2-story 5-unit building and a 900 square foot single unit. There are a total of 15 units and 5 single-room occupant units on this property. And I believe I'm still... Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. Okay. Why don't we make your presentation?
Okay. I'm Gordon Brewer with Brewer & Williams, architect and designer. And as a little bit of a background, I was hired by the owner, Mr. David Garrity, about 13 years ago initially to document the Flying A boarding house, which is the larger original Barber building circa like 1880-something, I think. And at that time, we were mostly concerned with the interior improvements that had been made and wanting to basically enshrine, kind of codify those. But in the process of doing that, I had to develop a site plan. So I did at that time, again, about 13 years ago, just go around and measure the perimeters of the entire complex, which included this original Barber historic Flying A boarding house building, a little addition to the back, and then these, what they call the annex, these other 2 buildings that were added probably about a little after the turn of the century. I did not, at that time, explore the interiors of these 2 buildings, which did burn about a year and a half ago, I believe. The annex buildings burned. Fortunately, nobody was killed, or I don't even think anybody was injured seriously. I believe there might have been a cat, though, however, sadly, that perished. But they had functioning smoke detectors, and so everybody got out, I think. So
The insides were burned? Or
the whole building is dead.
Okay.
Both these buildings are gone. They're no longer there. So then Mr. Garrity contacted me and wanted me to, since I had done these original field measurements of the boarding house itself, to document what had been lost, basically, for insurance purposes, for the insurance company. So he gave me, I don't know if you want to see these or not, but he gave me some drawings that the insurance people had of the buildings that they base their insurance on. So I took those in conjunction with some of these pictures, which you can still get out of Google, which in fact showed a little bit of the houses that burned, basically. Showed some of the detail. You can get the window, kind of some of the window detailing, and the board and bat, and so on and so forth. Picture. Probably I'm not going to replace the aluminum window. You can get the roof lines and pick out, pretty much extrapolate what...
Hold on for a second. What buildings are we looking at in this aerial?
In that aerial, okay, this is the Flying A boarding house itself. This is the long building, that units B through F, and this is unit A that were lost, okay? Those 2 buildings there.
One story.
They're one-story. They're one-story elements. Looking upside down, I'm going to have to...
I can tell.
Yeah, you can tell. There you go. There's the same, the long units B through F and the unit A. So I can pretty clearly identify the roof patterns from those, the roof plans.
Then if you can pass them to the other side of the table and you guys are done with it. These are great pictures.
Yeah, thanks to the magic of Google, they had not been updated since the building burned, so I could just grab these pictures right off of Google.
Okay, so hold on to the...
Okay. And I guess, I don't know, you've seen pictures of the surrounding neighborhoods, but just briefly, there's, starting from the corner of Delavina and Mitchell-Trina, this is the long apartment building right next door to the project. That's the Flying A boarding house itself. That's the site of the former units B through F, which parallel this apartment building along the north or the west property line, if you go along this property line.
That hedge is right here.
Yeah, there's a large hedge right along here.
That's a pretty good shot.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you need these other pictures. They're just kind of historical. I mean, the neighborhood
Can I
context.
ask staff a question before you continue? It said it was a like-for-like rebuilding. So that when it means like-for-like, can you change the exterior building materials, locations of windows, roof pitches? How much can we tug and pull the architecture, and how much of the architecture should we let you, staff, make sure that it's like-for-like?
Let's see. Well, if the existing property or the previous property was non-conforming to the ordinance in a few different respects. And I know that one was the setback along the long side of that building. That's very close to the property line. One consideration with that side of the building, too, is that the applicant's proposing to remove the windows, I think.
Well, yeah, I've been informed by the building department, or by the planning department when I initially approached this project, that yes, it has to be replaced like for like, and he's entitled to build the same square footage, same number of bedrooms, same footprint in the same location, but he's not entitled to, he still needs to meet the current building code requirements, okay, and that will have to do with protection of this wall that's 1 foot from the property line. We're not going to be allowed any windows on that wall. So that's kind of just, it is what it is, basically. We just have to deal with that reality.
Okay.
And just for information, if you'd like, here is the set that I produced for the fire department, or excuse me, the insurance company. Yeah.
So this showed the windows in the back that you are now...
having to.
Okay.
And so in the process of that, I tried to, if you compare this floor plan to the floor plan that's there, you can see how I had to try to maximize the exposure of the public, the group spaces and the living spaces to where there was light available, easily available. Now, it doesn't show on this floor plan. The other consideration is these windows here, that especially these windows. There's the other building, the Flying A boarding house, or the building A actually, comes very close, within 4 feet of this building. So this becomes essentially a light well or a court. I did do an area check, and I believe I'll be able to count all the buildings on the property as one building for building,
separation.
For separation purposes. So I just have to make sure that I picked one wall or the other to protect, and the other to have the openings. Now, obviously, I've got these. This is their only chance for openings. So this is the wall that gets the openings. Building A, which is a few pages back, has a wall facing here, which does not have any windows. For that reason, it'll have to be a fire-rated building and be able to give the windows to these units along there.
Okay. Let's look at the elevations. This is the non-fire-rated elevation.
That's the non-fire-rated, yeah. And if you'd like, you can see the historic elevations as close as you could. Okay. So you can see I didn't change any of the roof pitches or roof lines or the appearance of the finished materials or whatnot, all of that. All I did was drag the windows around. And since I did it in Vectorworks, the windows they're on a layer above, so literally I didn't change any of the backgrounds. It's just a matter of dragging the windows around where they needed to be.
So, Mr. Chair, getting back to the non-conforming, it's non-conforming to setbacks. Also, separation between buildings is non-conforming. The residential density, the number of units is non-conforming. That's why they can't add any square footage. And the number of parking spaces is non-conforming.
But staff's reviewed this project, and what we're looking at today basically is a like for like, and they have and matching
Right.
what was lost.
Ensure colors and exterior materials. The roof can't be raised or the pitch raised in the setbacks, but the roof covering can be changed. That kind of thing.
Great, I think we understand.
And planning staff actually has some questions that we don't know the answer to for building and safety.
Let's hold on to your questions till he's
Okay.
done with his presentation.
I guess you got to look at this if you want to see the other building then, building A.
This
These are
is
the
building
elevations
A?
for building A, yeah. Again, it has two walls that need fire protection. One of them to protect units B through F, and the other there's an exterior exit stairway coming from the original Flying A boarding house that needs protection. Basically, I can't have openings facing that exterior exit stairway. They were early.
Yes,
This is the owner, David Garrity.
You guys were going to be late, but you're 4 minutes early. How long has this been going on?
Rarely.
No. I mean, how long is it? How long did this start? Okay.
You're fine. And do you want to announce who you are in the mic?
Oh, my name is Jeannie Daniel, and I work for David.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else for your presentation?
I think that's about it. If you care to see the elevations for the original building A, there's those. You can see the roof pitches, everything else except for the window locations is identical.
Okay. I think I want to go to the site plan and have you show us the stairways and assume property line between that. And I think that takes care of your presentation.
There is one little change we think we want to make in terms of the site plan. I don't know if this doesn't have a site plan on it. But if you were to look at the original buildings, this building A originally had a little porch that actually welded onto that corner of the Flying A boarding house, and that just really seemed totally awkward, and we just wanted to remove that. So that's one minor little change. I think it really helps both projects to not be. It was really an ugly transition and difficult to flash and inviting waterproofing problems and so on and so forth. This is the exterior exit stairway here. That's the problem.
This is the wall that has no windows.
That's the wall that has. Well, I think it has some windows here.
Okay.
Take that back. And this is a wall that has no windows here because of these windows facing here. And then this wall, obviously, here has no windows.
Great. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. It's a pretty straightforward project from my point of view.
Alrighty. I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and go to the staff. And staff has a couple of questions and comments for us pertaining to this project.
We did have a public comment letter from Paula Westbury.
Sorry about that.
And we were just going to investigate with building and safety if there was anything that could allow some windows on that side, if possible. Possibly a land use covenant or something that there would be some building separation to the buildings on the adjacent property.
Well, that was gonna be my
Don't know the
question.
answer to that.
Is there's such great technology with glass these days and fire rated windows? Is it cost prohibitive to include this kind of openings on that side?
Well, there's two things in my mind, actually. One is obviously the cost, and the second is that it being 1 foot from the property line and 1 foot from a fence, basically, I'm not sure what value the windows are really going to be along that wall. There's nothing to be seen except the other apartment house and the windows, frankly, of the other apartment house. That's their view shed, is this fence in the building and whatnot. So, and it's the other apartment house is, I believe, probably 6 feet from the property line. It's very close. So I don't really see what's to be gained from adding windows to this building. I see it more as like a Roman building technology, where this building ends up really right on the property line, and it has a solid wall, and it orients itself toward its own courtyard. And the other building is what it is, of course, but it at least gets the advantage of taking advantage of its side yard, and then you don't have windows facing 6-7 feet away from each other, looking into each other's.
It's like
space.
a zero lot line
It's
condition.
a zero lot line. Is what it effectively is. The 1 foot is just enough to handle the overhang from our project.
Okay. Anything else, staff? Comments from you?
We've prepared a memo regarding the landscaping when the project's ready to come back for a landscape plan.
Is that memo?
She just handed it to us.
I need to make sure I read through that.
No, I have the memo here. This is it.
Can you read through her memo?
Yeah, I'll go through it quickly. Just question, will the burned palm trees be replaced? And what are the status of large camellias adjacent to the palm noted on? We have an Archive 2006 landscape plan for the property. And whether the 80% water-wise landscaping requirement will apply. It looks like there was a lot of turf on site. We'll have to see if that needs to be brought up to the 80% water-wise standard. So we'll look at these things when a landscape plan's provided.
Okay, so that's your assignment for the next time you're in front of us. So does staff have anything else for... And I wanted to bring this to the board for questions of the applicant dealing with the architecture of the buildings that are being rebuilt as a like-for-like situation.
I have a question for staff. Is the non-conforming parking, does that mean there's inadequate parking for the residences? Okay.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant.
Go for it.
Gordon, can you tell us why you are removing the windows on Building A?
On Building A,
I see that there's some existing windows on the original drawings.
on these windows along this wall here?
Right.
That's to give protection to these windows to allow these windows to be in this wall over here. In other words, there's not enough distance. There's just about 10 feet, if you will, in here. So one of these walls needs to be protected.
Really?
Yeah.
One had to be one protected.
Yeah,
I thought,
when you have
I thought you can,
the courtyard,
as long as within 10 feet you can have openings, because you mentioned they are like one building, right?
Could you add these two square footages into one structure?
Yeah, I actually added all of them.
So then there is no assumed property line between them.
Well, there's a court. It's a court, and then you got to. If we can get windows in here, I'll put windows in here. Believe me, I'd like to have some windows in this wall here. But at least my first reading of the code and of course, it's changed a little bit, but this is construed as a court, and then you have to. The regulations apply to the protection of windows within the court. And when I read it, I came up with I had to really pick one wall or the other to be able to have the windows in.
I think I can talk about this. When there are more than one building on a property and they're close together, you can put a property line between.
Yeah.
And you can move it anywhere you want
That's right.
for your advantage.
Yeah.
If there's, I think the code says protected openings less than 5 feet, no openings less than 3 feet.
Right.
So if your property line is like 411 or 5
Right.
feet, you might be able to get windows on both
Right.
sides of that.
Yeah.
Problem is that the other building on the property
That's
line.
right. That's the problem. And this was the building that needed. These spaces you can see in here. They have no other place to get any light, so it chose to put the assumed property line right basically along that building there.
Oh, I see. But you could put it in the middle between the two, split the courtyard, and get windows in both buildings. Protected openings.
Protected openings,
But that's
yeah.
All right, let's move on to the architecture, but if that's a concern, then we can ask him to further investigate the possibility of adding windows.
I have a question. Building A, the smaller building, and we were just talking about the windows. You have some of the elevations have horizontal siding, and some of it has vertical siding. Is there a reason you propose?
Yeah, if I could have those pictures back.
Just match the existing
I
condition.
tried to match the existing as well as I could. Were there some other ones? I thought I had some other ones here.
About a couple more underneath the drawing.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. I think we understand what's going on.
Okay, now this picture was actually during the fire, and it shows. Let's see. We show that. No, it's not that side. It's this side. See, there's the stairwell.
Okay.
And it shows pretty clearly the vertical, siding there. This picture is taken between the two buildings, and you can see that it had the lap siding on that side, and that the additions were clearly in the vertical siding. So I just took that. I was puzzled by it myself too. I thought, okay, well, I could see where the original house probably had the horizontal siding on it, and then the additions had the vertical on it. But then at some point, somebody put the vertical siding along this whole side where the additions were. So I just went with that. It doesn't make any difference to me, frankly, whether.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I just was trying to be consistent with what had been there historically.
Very cool.
Questions from the board?
I have
Yes, go for
a question. The ramp in between the buildings, is that needed to get handicap access up to this point?
We're still getting the fine tuning on a topo here, so we can get the path of travel completely figured out. If it's possible to go this way, we might. I don't think there's enough room in here to do that, but that is the intent of that, is to provide access.
So that entire ramp is needed just to get up to that point?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And that is where the original entrance to that?
Yes, that's where the original entrance was, right along that stairway, or that balcony, excuse me.
Okay.
One more question for the applicant.
Go for it, Tim.
Can we? Can you add more window to the east side of building A?
Sure.
Oh, that's the east.
East side is this one.
No.
This side?
That's east, right? Right.
This side. Let's see how many we have there now.
South.
Oh, I'm sorry, the south side.
The south side. Let's see what the floor plan is there.
Is that this one?
That's the east. South. No, that's not the...
Well,
let's take a look at the floor plan again.
Maybe you're calling this east on your elevations.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what they think.
Okay. Well, right now we have one. If we can get a window in that bathroom, we'd be happy to do
the
that.
study area, maybe.
Yeah. And this may be facing that stairwell, so that may be in trouble.
He's got an adjacency issue with the stairway that's down here.
An exterior exit stairwell. It needs a protected wall within, I think, 10 feet or so.
For the stairwell?
Yeah, the exterior exit stairwell. But I'll look at that carefully, and if we can add windows there, I definitely will.
Well, we're not going to challenge your code research, but we'll question it.
Yeah.
So let's move on to some comments and then wrap this up as a motion. And then we can decide if it's going to be returned back to full board or returned to consent.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
your comment. I think it's fine as proposed, and I appreciate the meticulous effort to reproduce what was there before, to the extent of even the siding matching the different stages of building that were done. In some ways, I guess you could say, it's returning the property to its original historical content. And I think if Gordon can find some ways to add more windows, I'm sure both the owner and the architect would be interested in adding them additional ones wherever they could. But I don't see any point in trying to force, high-cost windows along a side where we've got property line issues or adjacency to other buildings. So I think it's a good proposal, and I appreciate that effort.
Thank you. Anything from anybody else that's different or additional?
Just add that in the railings, although historical, may not meet the building code for facing.
Yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm hoping we're not going to be over 30 inches high, so we may not need the 4-inch spacing.
Okay. This project can be given project design approval and can be returned back to consent for final. If that's the only thing we don't have is a landscape plan, so at this point it can't have landscape project design approval.
I have a question for the applicant.
First, this question, and then we'll go to Stephanie and Gary.
Do you intend to return the landscaping to the original 2006 plan that was approved?
I'll defer to the owner on that.
Oh, sure.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Colors, are they going to be as original?
I would recommend that they would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can make a color board as part of the consent requirements. Gary?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the siding. It looks, from the photographs that you have here, I think some of those ones right there that I was looking at. I'm looking at the original building. And when we look at this, building, we can tell that it is a single wall construction, boxed out where the windows are and the doors are. Board and bat, and then we look at the overall building where we have the hip roof, and what my comments would be is that it would probably be better not to turn it to where that remodel happened and some of the siding was changed and some of it was kept original. I think it would be better to keep it one plan or another of original design, and either keep the original design of the board and bat all the way around, or keep the horizontal siding that's all the way around. I think that the trying to match it exactly from where it was remodeled is not really the best plan at this point, especially on the ground up.
One comment.
Can we just?
Okay.
That's just.
So I think that it's good to keep like for like, but we still, I think if we really dig deeper into the past, it was board and bat all the way around, or it was. I don't think that we're taking away like for like if we keep the siding all the same.
The reason why I quieted you, because I concur with what he said. I want to give you enough leeway to make minor architectural enhancements, and I think staff will support us in saying that you're not being aggressive. And so if there's things that you see that would make the building more logical, we expect you to do that, because you're a local architect, and that's what you do.
Just one thing. The long building was board and bat, and I think it's consistently board and bat. This little building, Building A, was the one that was the hybrid. It had, in my opinion, originally was a lap siding original building, and then it had these additions that were the vertical siding on that. So I've got no problem in making. I think this probably should, the addition part of it should probably stay